Chapter 1073. Hearing the Brocade Emperor's question, Yen Zhaoge was rather taken aback, not having thought that this emperor would continue asking about it. Was he interested in the extreme crown, or did he have some other plans? Many thoughts instantly flashed through Yen Zhaoge's mind. There was no helping it, facing a true immortal who might do something shocking at any time. Yen Zhaoge had to think more about it. He pondered inwardly, while not revealing anything on his face, in the extreme northern lands of the northern profound heaven territory. Extreme northern lands. The Brocade Emperor nodded, pondering for a moment. The dimensional space there is more unstable than elsewhere, as a dimensional passageway would occasionally open, leading to extra-dimensional space. Still, some of these dimensional passageways might establish a connection with the 9 underworlds. While the Brocade Emperor's tone was mild, it was no different from a sudden clap of thunder. Even Meng Wan and Chen Minjing knew what the words 9 underworlds entailed. Yen Zhaoge's pupils dilated slightly. Even the Northern Exalt does not know of this. He knows. Still, he is unable to ascertain which dimensional passageways might establish a connection with the 9 underworlds. The Brocade Emperor answered mildly. Of course, he also does not know if there is a problem with the dimensional passageway your fellow disciple entered. While a connection might arise, the world beyond worlds has its own defenses that the 9 underworlds cannot infiltrate. While Northern Guan does have the responsibility of guarding the northern profound heaven territory, it is merely a precaution. Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoge and Meng Wan's hearts suddenly rose. Still, the Brocade Emperor then looked at Meng Wan, saying warmly, "Don't worry. Father will take you to the north, and try searching for it." Joy appeared on Meng Wan's face. "Father can find Sister Feng? If we know where the door opened when she left, Father can make it open ahead of time. Then we can enter the domain passageway together and try to find it." The Brocade Emperor said, "Still, extra-dimensional space is vast and boundless at the end of the day. She has been there for many years. She will need some luck to find it." Meng Wan heaved a long sigh of relief. "There's finally some hope. It's already very good." Yen Zhaoge lowered his gaze by the side, not making a sound, looking at that gentle, benevolent Brocade Emperor who was deeply in love with his children. He actually vaguely felt a trace of coldness, just from the Brocade Emperor's actions at the star-reflecting lake of the southern blazing heaven territory in the world beyond worlds. It was clear that this emperor was definitely not a good father. He moved the burial place to remember his deceased lover, and he doted on his long-lost daughter to the extent that he would grant her every request. Yen Zhaoge was incomparably certain that if Meng Wan had said that she would rebuild the Sacred Sun clan and seek vengeance against Broad Creed Mountain earlier, the Brocade Emperor would not have hesitated in the slightest to wage war against Broad Creed Mountain. Yet, all of this formed a contradiction with his actions at Star Reflecting Lake. I'm afraid that the outcome of the confrontation between him who has feelings and him who is unfeeling is gradually beginning to be decided. Yen Zhaoge's expression was as per usual as he raised his eyes to look at the Brocade Emperor once more, thinking, this outcome, however, is that the unfeeling side is gradually beginning to gain the upper hand. While there were 2 opposing ideologies, the Brocade Emperor was clear about his own situation. There were not many ways to resolve this problem. One path was the path of obtaining feelings and forgetting them. Yet because of Fu Ting and Meng Wan, this path seemed to have already been blocked off, with little hope as it was unknown where it led. The other path was to simply turn from feeling into unfeeling. From the looks of it, this path was much simpler. Eradicating both Fu Ting and Meng Wan would be the way out. Not only would this solve his current problem, the Brocade Emperor's attainments in his cultivation base might even improve further. While he would most likely not be able to break through to a higher cultivation level, it would be sufficient for him to push towards the peak of the true immortal stage. The unfeeling side of the Brocade Emperor only cared about whether it was reasonable or not, only calculating the gains and losses, as compared to the first path where he had no clue as to how he should proceed. The second path was simply far, far superior. There was no need for him to hesitate at all as to how he should choose. However, the emotional side of him naturally rejected the second option. It was just that Yan Zhaoge now guessed that the unfeeling side of the Brocade Emperor's split soul was probably gradually beginning to take over the dominant position now. The warmth and kindness before him seemed more like the futile struggles of his feeling side. Buried beneath that warmth and benevolence was an icy cold killing intent. This killing intent was not just targeted at Meng Wan before him. It was also targeted at Fu Ting, who was still far away at Ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff. The Brocade Emperor was doing his best to make up for his two daughters. Yet, the more beautiful things were before him. The closer the cliff behind him was, this is really... Yan Zhaoge's eyes narrowed into slits, his gaze flickering slightly. Whether it was feeling or unfeeling, it was best for the Brocade Emperor to decide on one as soon as possible. His current conflicted state was the worst, because he was the most unstable and unpredictable. Who knew what he might do? The eruption of the name of the immeasurable heavenly lord on star-reflecting lake was just the beginning. To a certain extent, even the Brocade Emperor himself probably could not tell what he might do next. If he really went crazy, even he would be afraid of it. Therefore, whether he was feeling or unfeeling, once he had decided on one, even if it was still hard to guess what he was thinking, there would at least be some sort of pattern to follow, as they would be able to communicate, normally be able to plan and defend against it. It would not be like how things were now, where he seemed very ordinary and not special at all, yet might suddenly cause trouble at any time. As for whether he was feeling or unfeeling, Yan Zhaoge hoped that it would be unfeeling from the perspective of a purely bystander. Absolute rationality, unfeeling, seemingly icy cold, and terrifying. Yet, from Yan Zhaoge's perspective, it was easier to predict the actions and thoughts of such a person. Of course, if such a person was an enemy, he would virtually never make a subjective error, as it would be very hard to influence his thoughts. Still, if there really was such a person who only calculated gains and losses, as he did not act emotionally, it would actually be very hard for him to form enmity with others, unless someone blocked his path. After all, being unfeeling did not mean that he had no desires. At this point, Yan Zhaoge's heart suddenly jolted slightly, as he seemed to vaguely think of something. Having comprehended supreme martial arts of the grand, clear lineage over the years, his comprehension had grown deeper and deeper. Grand simplicity was like Taiji, one beginning and one ending, as they were profound and extraordinary. He could vaguely see some traces of the Brocade Emperor's future path. If the Brocade Emperor did not walk the unfeeling path, and instead walked the feeling path, his future path might be blocked. Yan Zhaoge currently had no suitable way to resolve this problem. If he were to eliminate Fu Ting and Meng Wan, causing the Brocade Emperor to completely walk the unfeeling path, his cultivation base might even improve further. Still, it would only make up for his previous flaws, as the repercussions would still exist. It was likely that he would be stuck at the peak of the true immortal realm, unable to advance any further. If he wanted to advance, he would need a special fortuitous encounter. This would depend on the complete foundation of the grand cosmos 5 manifestations. Here came the problem. If it was just the Tai Fist, it would still be fine. Yet, if he needed the grand simplicity splendor cloud, things would be very serious. The grand simplicity splendor cloud was currently one with Yan Di, as they were bound together for good or ill. It would not be a problem for him to temporarily borrow it or provide it for himself. Still, if the other party wanted to completely refine the grand simplicity splendor cloud, it would mean that he would have to separate it from Yen Di. This could only be done after Yen Di's death. As compared to the possible conflict between Meng Wan and the Sacred Sun clan, this could be the true conflict. Chapter 1074. Yen Zhaoge frowned inwardly, sighing to himself. Whether or not the Brocade Emperor would come into conflict with him after walking the unfeeling path, just watching as Fu Ting and Meng Wan perished just like this, he felt rather heavy-hearted. Meng Wan was Feng Yunqing's best friend. Fu Ting was also one of Yen Zhaoge's rather good friends after having come to the world beyond worlds. If the Brocade Emperor walked the unfeeling path, the two of them would definitely die for sure. Another issue that Yen Zhaoge was concerned about was how the other 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors of the world beyond worlds viewed the current Brocade Emperor. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he naturally wouldn't take such extreme measures. More likely, it was to help the Brocade Emperor return to normal or even advance a step further. If the Brocade Emperor could break through his current cultivation level, he would not have to fear the Sword Sovereign's revenge. That might cause the world beyond worlds to split apart. Unless it was absolutely necessary, the earthly sovereign and the concealed sovereign would not agree to it. However, Yen Zhaoge, who had never been afraid of guessing at others with the greatest evil intentions, had no choice but to consider a problem. Because of him and his mother, Xue Chuqing, the Sword Sovereign and the earthly sovereign were destined to be at odds. Under such circumstances, would the earthly sovereign be more willing to see a new sovereign replace the Sword Sovereign? With the revival of the Tao sect, top-notch mighty figures were extremely precious. However, if they were truly like fire and water, then they would have to see who was stronger in the end. The key was how big the difference between the earthly emperor and the Sword Emperor was, and what was the opinion of the concealed emperor, who had always tacitly supported the earthly emperor. The earthly sovereign and the Sword Sovereign were still in extra-dimensional space, having yet to return. The concealed sovereign, who presided over the world beyond worlds, would directly decide how things would go. Many thoughts flashed through Yen Zhaoge's mind as he calculated unceasingly. While there were many things to consider, Yen Zhaoge's expression did not change. Right, the upper exalt seemed to have left with the Brocade Emperor's group earlier. I wonder if he has descended into this 8 extremities world as well. Chun Qianhua was the #1 martial saint and the strongest supreme. It was very likely that he could rival a perfected immortal emperor. However, as long as he had not truly pushed open the immortal door and removed the word human from the immortal in human immortal, there were many rules that he had to abide by. Descending to the lower worlds, he who was a human immortal would also be suppressed to the 3rd level of the martial saint realm. Back in the world beyond worlds, he had been a 10th level martial saint, while Yen Zhaoge had been a 7th level martial saint. Therefore, even Yen Zhaoge had been hard-pressed to detect their presence. Now, however, everyone was at the 3rd level of the martial saint realm. If Chun Qianhua was in the vicinity of Turbid Wave Pavilion, Yen Zhaoge had sufficient confidence in finding him with a single glance. Currently, he was nowhere to be seen in the vicinity of Turbid Wave Pavilion. With the distance being too great, Yen Zhaoge couldn't be sure if he had come to the 8 extremities world. With his current spiritual sense, it would not be a problem for him to cover the entire world. It would also not be a problem for him to find other martial saints. However, it would be difficult to find Chun Qianhua if he was too far away. Chun Qianhua followed us, but he didn't follow us all the way. For the Brocade Emperor to find someone at the 3rd level of the martial saint realm in the 8 extremities world, it was naturally as simple as breathing, "He's in that direction." Following the Brocade Emperor's gaze, Yen Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. "Earth domain?" He pondered for a moment before looking at the Brocade Emperor. To tell you the truth, Yunsheng is this Yan's wife. She has been out adventuring for many years and has yet to return. I miss her dearly as well, hoping that we can reunite soon. Now that the Brocade Emperor is helping you in your search, I wonder if I can accompany you? Chun Minjing was rather taken aback, while Meng Wan lowered her head, smiling. Senior apprentice Sister Feng has found a good partner. The Brocade Emperor smiled nonchalantly. I am well aware of how it feels to be separated from one's lover. Since little friend Yen has such intentions, there is naturally no harm in accompanying you. If you can find that little friend Feng, it would be a wonderful thing for the two of you to reunite. I thank the Brocade Emperor for fulfilling my wish. Yen Zhaoge said, the Upper Exalt has come to the Eight Extremities world. As the host, our sect would be lacking in etiquette if we do not receive him. Please wait a moment, Brocade Emperor. This Yen will go meet the Upper Exalt and return very soon. If possible, I hope that the Brocade Emperor can come to my Broad Creed Mountain as a guest as well. The Brocade Emperor shook his head. It's fine. You go meet Qianhua on your own. I will accompany Wan here for a while longer. Wan and her master have not seen each other for many years. They should reunite more often. Yen Zhaoge cupped his hands. Forgive me for taking my leave. He looked at Meng Wan. She smiled, her gaze intelligent, as ever as no abnormalities could be seen in it. Yen Zhaoge smiled in return, not speaking as he left the residence. Seeing in Qinglin and the others who were waiting outside, Yen Zhaoge said, this Yen will be back very soon. Do not disturb them. Let them talk amongst themselves. Those of Turbid Wave Pavilion all nodded, still feeling some lingering fear. If not for Yen Zhaoge's reminder, they would not even have known that the Brocade Emperor had already long since brought Meng Wan in. Senior Apprentice Sister Xia, Senior Apprentice Brother Su has also come to the Eight Extremities world. While today's matter is important, after it is over, you can meet up. Yen Zhaoge smiled at a female elder of Turbid Wave Pavilion who had ordinary features yet exuded a heroic air. That female elder was none other than Xie Yuchan, who had already long since attained the martial grandmaster realm. While she was rather far from Su Fei, she could still be considered extremely young for her age, as she still had potential that could be unearthed. She had rejected Broad Creed Mountain's proposal to assist her in heading to the world beyond worlds, insisting on relying on her own cultivation, as she sought to ascend to the world beyond worlds one day. Still, Xie Yuchan had always been on good terms with those of Broad Creed Mountain, as she was an old acquaintance of Yen Zhaoge's. Hearing Yen Zhaoge's words, she smiled, saying, public matters before private matters. This is how it should be. Yen Zhaoge nodded, leaving Turbid Wave Pavilion alone as he headed towards the domain of the northwest. Outside Turbid Wave Pavilion, a tall man stood amidst space, resembling a mountain. It was precisely Su Fei. While his lover Xie Yuchan was currently at Turbid Wave Pavilion, he waited quietly here, not intending to enter Turbid Wave Pavilion. Seeing him, Yen Zhaoge immediately said, Senior Apprentice Brother Su, send a message back to the world beyond worlds to contact my father immediately. Hearing Yen Zhaoge's guesses regarding the Brocade Emperor's cultivation and the grand simplicity splendor cloud, Su Fei instantly knit his brows. I will do so immediately. Ingenious Flying Peak, Red Lotus Cliff, send a message as well. Yen Zhaoge pondered momentarily before saying, don't speak too clearly. Just give them some pointers. At the end of the day, Fu Ting and Meng Wan's safety was still just Yen Zhaoge's own guess. They were father and daughter at the end of the day. Still, those of Ingenious Flying Peak were all of the grand, clear, direct lineage, as they had some understanding of the Brocade Emperor's cultivation. Combining the current clues, they would have some guesses as well. Su Fei nodded. not wasting time on words as he turned and hurried towards the wound of the sky, where the sacred Sun clan of the fire domain was located. Yen Zhaoge exhaled slowly, heading towards the domain of the earth. While his understanding of Chen Qianhua's temperament was limited, Yen Zhaoge instinctively felt rather wary of him. He had clearly come to the Eight Extremities world to join in on the fun with the Brocade Emperor, yet had abandoned the Brocade Emperor midway to come to the domain of the earth. Yen Zhaoge was even more concerned about this. The domain of the earth held extraordinary significance to the Eight Extremities world. Yen Zhaoge entered the domain of the earth, descending towards the deep valley down below. Halfway through his descent, he saw a purple-clothed youth slowly rising into the air. Chapter 10, 75. While he could be considered handsome, he had a listless look on his face, causing his temperament to be completely lacking. His purple clothes made the youth's skin appear even paler. Still, as long as he appeared there, it would be sufficient to make most people's hearts tremble. It was the upper exalt, Chen Qianhua. He raised his head and saw Yen Zhaoge. Chen Qianhua's listless eyes instantly lit up slightly. He looked at Yen Zhaoge from the corner of his eyes and appraised him. He immediately said, "This inconspicuous lower realm seems inconspicuous, but it is truly interesting. No wonder such an interesting person like you could appear here." Oh, Yen Zhaoge's gaze flickered as he noticed Chen Qianhua's puzzling words. Upper Exalt's words really perplexed this Yen. Chen Qianhua smiled. "Don't feign ignorance." Yen Zhaoge said mildly, "The 9 underworld's corrosion can be encountered in any world. If we really want to talk about the uniqueness of this 8 Extremities world, it should be that the exalted solar luminary and the exalted lunar luminary had both left their footprints here." Chen Qianhua extended a finger and shook it lightly. "The ones who left their footprints aren't just the 2 of them." Yen Zhaoge shrugged. "That's right. Now, there's also you and the Brocade Emperor. From how I see it, the one who deserves the most attention isn't the exalted solar luminary, the exalted lunar luminary, or anyone else. It's," Chen Qianhua said. He stopped shaking his finger and pointed at Yen Zhaoge. "It's you." Yen Zhaoge smiled nonchalantly. "I'll take it as a compliment and accept it. Thank you." Chen Qianhua laughed at Yen Zhaoge's shamelessness. "You're indeed interesting." "Do you use interesting and boring as a standard to differentiate different people?" Yen Zhaoge asked. Chen Qianhua said lazily, "What else? Smart and stupid? Childish and mature? Benevolent and cruel?" There are countless examples like this. But so what? Smart people might do stupid things, and loving people are sometimes the cruelest. To me, the difference between people is that only a few can surprise me, while most will never be able to do so. Surprises are interesting. The rest is boring. Chen Qianhua yawned. "That's all." Yen Zhaoge was surprised. "Then, has anyone ever told you that your way of doing things is also very senseless?" "Ha!" Chen Qianhua laughed upon hearing this, asking instead, "What do you think the Brocade Emperor should do next?" There's no need to play dumb about this, right? Everyone can see that he has gone berserk. Chen Qianhua said lazily. "In other words, he's crazy." Perhaps the Brocade Emperor did indeed suffer from cultivation deviation. Still, when I interacted with him, he did not lose his mind. Yen Zhaoge's tone was neither mild nor salty. The Brocade Emperor has his own plans. What should be done is for him to decide for himself. At the very least, of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, the concealed sovereign and the female emperor, as well as the heaven emperor, are all in the world beyond worlds. Chen Qianhua chuckled. "Indeed, it's not a case of insanity. It's more like a soul-dissociating syndrome, isn't it?" As he laughed, He stretched out his hands and spread them out. He first raised his left hand. One is sentimental, or should I say sentimental. Then he raised his right hand. The other is unfeeling, or should I say unfeeling. Chen Qianhua brought his hands together before his chest. They are currently fighting with one another. Yan Zhaoge's expression did not change as he felt slightly solemn inside. He had a deep understanding of the supreme martial arts of the Grand Clear Direct lineage. Therefore, he was able to basically deduce the Brocade Emperor's current state. Just from looking at what had happened at Star Reflecting Lake, Chen Qianhua had already been able to deduce many things. Or perhaps it was not just a deduction. Instead, he had some special information channel. If the Brocade Emperor were to decide for himself, it would most likely be how he could return to normal, how he could continue cultivating. Looking at Yan Zhaoge, Chen Qianhua smiled. As for the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, they probably think the same way. As for whether he ultimately walks the unfeeling path or the sentimental path, that is not important. What is important is that the Brocade Emperor no longer suffers from a mental illness like the soul detachment syndrome. Because the Brocade Emperor who suffers from the soul detachment syndrome does things that are unexpected and hard for them to predict. Those people all like to have everything within their control. What they hate the most is when things exceed their predictions and become uncontrollable. Chen Qianhua looked at Yan Zhaoge through the corner of his eye. In this aspect, you are the same type of person as them. Yan Zhaoge shot him a deep glance. Could it be that you are more than happy to see the Brocade Emperor remain in his current state? That's right. Chen Qianhua clapped his hands, chuckling. There are always unexpected surprises. That is what makes it interesting. Yan Zhaoge asked noncommittally, since that is so, why did you come here instead of following the Brocade Emperor? Chen Qianhua pointed at Yan Zhaoge. It was not easy for Fu Jinxiu to become less boring. I certainly don't want him to vanish too quickly. Therefore, I found something for you to do first. Don't be in such a hurry to cause trouble. Yan Zhaoge said calmly. You also know how to make plans. According to you, if your plans and objectives are achieved, wouldn't it instead be boring, with no surprises at all? About that, I am not making plans. I am not planning anything, nor do I have any plans at all. Chen Qianhua waved his hands. I am just adding a little something to your plans and seeing how they turn out. If it is within my predictions, it will look like your plans have become my plans, with me substituting them. It is indeed rather boring if I do this too much, but it can at least pass the time. If it is not within my predictions, it will naturally be a pleasant surprise. Whether it is good or bad, it will still be a pleasant surprise. Chen Qianhua smiled. Now, let me give you a little surprise. See if you can repay me with something interesting. Amidst their conversation, the deep valley of the Earth domain down below was already quaking and shaking. The tremors expanded towards the entire Earth domain. Streams of blood-red light transformed into terrifying runes that seemed about to rip the great Earth apart as they expanded into the surroundings. Where the roiling black fog passed, it actually began devouring the world outside the Earth domain. Such a scene was undoubtedly a nightmare descending for the martial practitioners of Broad Creed Mountain of the 8 Extremities world. The terrifying 9 underworlds was about to descend upon the 8 Extremities world once more. In entering the deep valley of the Earth domain earlier, Chen Qianhua had shockingly destroyed the seal he had left down below. Not just that, the disturbance he had caused the Great 9 Underworld's door beneath the Earth domain to tear even greater. The momentum of the descent of the 9 Underworlds this time surpassed all previous ones. The terrifying devilish chi not only suffused the Earth domain, even wanting to devour the surrounding world as well. At this moment, the 8 Extremities world was virtually about to be completely assimilated by the 9 underworlds. Yen Zhaoge, however, did not lower his head to look at the deep abyss down below. He suddenly strode forward, instantly arriving before Chen Qianhua. "Is this a pleasant surprise?" Amidst his words, a palm mightily descended. Chapter 10:76. Yen Zhaoge obscured the heavens with a palm, overturning the heavens with a palm. He raised his palm upwards before striking downwards. This cyclic heavenly seal truly possessed the power to trample the heavens. Even with his cultivation base suppressed to the 3rd level of the martial saint realm, it still far surpassed when he had truly been a 3rd level martial saint that year. A lower world, like the 8 extremities world, was already unable to bear the power of this palm of Yen Zhaoge's. As he executed the cyclic heavenly seal, the entire 8 extremities whirled apart from the land of the 9 underworlds down below, and the lake domain where the Brocade Emperor resided were virtually all about to be overturned. Yet, because the earth domain and the lake domain were locked in place, terrifying scenes of distortion were formed elsewhere. "Oh, you've really given me a pleasant surprise." Chen Qianhua's eyes lit up. "I had thought that you would have held back in fear of destroying this world." He no longer looked listless. Instead, he laughed heartily. "You really are an interesting person." Amidst his laughter, Chen Qianhua abruptly flipped his palm upwards, striking downwards. "Still, if it is just the cyclic heavenly seal, it cannot be considered a pleasant surprise." In the air above the earth domain, Yen Zhaoge and Chen Qianhua's movements were virtually identical, just that one struck downwards while the other struck upwards. Cyclic heavenly seal versus cyclic heavenly seal. As their palms met, the terrifying scenes of distortion in the heavens and earth of the 8 extremities world instead vanished. However, as their palms collided, the surrounding space instantly collapsed. "This is no longer the world beyond worlds." Yen Zhaoge said mildly, "I am not an early immortal bridge martial saint, and you are not a human exalt either." Amidst his words, his palm continued pressing downwards. In an instant, Chen Qianhua felt as though the surrounding heavens and earth had changed. Everything first became extremely massive before being unceasingly distanced from him. Because they were distanced, they began to shrink once more. However, the surrounding space was completely empty, as he was the only one left. It was not that other things in the outside world had grown larger before distancing themselves. Instead, he himself seemed to have shrunk at this moment. He had been compressed to the point of being as insignificant as a speck of dust. The surrounding spiritual chi of the heavens and earth exploded at this moment, resembling tsunamis and landslides as it pressured down towards him from all directions. The terrifying momentum that enveloped the heavens and covered the earth caused him to feel like he was facing the great tide of a great sea, as he would be devoured and shattered no matter how he tried to evade it. While they both cultivated in the cyclic heavenly scripture, Chen Qianhua's Qianhua was even more proficient than him. Flipping sky seal against flipping sky seal, Chen Qianhua was utterly defeated. "You've only been practicing the cyclic heavenly scripture for a few years, yet you have such a deep understanding of it." Chen Qianhua's eyes lit up. "Brilliant!" His other hand also went up and formed a fist seal. As soon as the fist seal was formed, an incomparably heavy power immediately manifested. It was like the earth that bore the weight of all things in the world, silent, solid, heavy, vigorous, and indestructible. Yen Zhaoge raised his brows. "Earth overturning seal?" The earth overturning seal was one of the 4 imperials of Taoism, the supreme technique of the Earth Empress direct lineage. It had been lost for many years following the Great Calamity. Under the same conditions, the earth overturning seal naturally could not defeat the cyclic sky seal. However, that ultimate technique was a peerless ultimate technique that the Lady of Earth had created after studying the cyclic heavenly book and the cyclic heavenly seal. At this moment, Chen Qianhua's two seals combined as one. His brilliant fist intent was as large as the royal heavens and as heavy as the later earth, forcibly blocking Yan Zhaoge's cyclic heavenly seal. The myriad things before him regained their original state, no longer suppressed by Yan Zhaoge's fist intent. I had originally wanted to hold you back with the great nine underworld's door below so that I could continue playing with the brocade emperor. Chen Qianhua smiled nonchalantly and said, "Now, it is you who is holding me back. It is fine. However, I wonder if you care about the great netherworld gate below?" While neither of them dared to be certain whether it was him or Yan Zhaoge, they both had a premonition. If the brocade emperor was in his right state of mind, he would definitely not sit by and watch as the nine underworlds invaded the human world. But now that his thoughts were unpredictable, it was hard to say. It wasn't impossible for him to take Mengwan and Chun Minjing with him. "You should worry about yourself first," Yan Zhaoge said. His palms, which were covering Chen Qianhua's hands, slammed down again. It was still the flipping sky seal, but it had reached another level. As Yan Zhaoge exerted more force with his palm, all existences within the surrounding space began to distort and overturn. Chen Qianhua felt as if his body had become tiny once again. An endless and terrifying pressure came from every direction at the same time. Beneath this palm of Yan Zhaoge's, all things in the world actually vanished. Time seemed to have flowed in reverse as the blue seas and mulberry fields flowed in reverse. Everything returned to its most primitive state. Creation no longer existed as the boundary between the heavens and the earth blurred. Clear qi sank while turbid qi rose. The heavens and earth that had been opened up had to be restored. Everything in the world returned to before the heavens and earth had been split apart. The later heaven world returned to earlier heaven. Amidst the dim darkness of space, nothing could be seen as only the primordial qis of yin and yang intermingled. The two qis of yin and yang gradually vanished as well. Only chaos indistinctly visible. Everything seemed to have returned to the beginning of earlier heaven as it was formless and intangible, without light or darkness, as it was silent and formless. The royal heavens and earth no longer existed. Returning to earlier heaven, even a true immortal might not be able to produce such a variation when executing the flipping sky seal. A strange light shot out of Chen Qianhua's eyes. You integrated the concepts of the Tai fist and the Taiji Yin Yang palm of the grand, clear, direct lineage within the cyclic heavenly seal. His figure suddenly shook, seemingly turning transparent as it was formless and intangible. In Yan Zhaoge's senses, Chen Qianhua seemed to have completely vanished for a moment, no longer existing in this world. A supreme martial art of the grand, clear, direct lineage, the grand beginning bright emptiness form of the grand cosmos 5 manifestations. It had long since been rumored in the world beyond worlds that the upper exalt Chen Qianhua was well-versed in countless supreme martial arts. Otherwise, he would not have been able to point out 8 sects in his youth. Many in the world beyond worlds knew that he cultivated in the cyclic heavenly scripture of the jade, clear, direct lineage. Still, besides the cyclic heavenly scripture, there was also the earth overturning seal of the Earth Empress direct lineage. Even more surprisingly, he was actually also proficient in supreme martial arts of the grand, clear, direct lineage. Still, while the grand beginning bright emptiness form possessed both offensive and defensive profundities, Chen Qianhua was still unable to withstand Yan Zhaoge's cyclic heavenly seal that was infused with the fist intent of the Tai fist and executed a reverting to earlier heaven transformation. The majestic concept caused Chen Qianhua's grand beginning concept to vanish into nothingness even without a forceful attack. Beneath this palm, grand beginning returned to grand commencement. then returned to grand simplicity, returning to nothingness. Still, Chen Qianhua was not naive enough to think that he would be able to receive Yan Zhaoge's attack just by relying on the grand, beginning bright emptiness form alone. His figure seemed illusory as he punched towards Yan Zhaoge's cyclic heavenly seal. While he was barehanded, as Chen Qianhua punched outwards, light condensed which actually manifested in the form of a scepter. Seeing that scepter, the first thought that popped into Yan Zhaoge's mind was that scepter of the founder of the grand clear lineage, the lord of the Tao and virtue that had dominated the myriad heavens. The grand clear direct lineage was boundlessly profound in earlier heaven and later heaven. Besides the grand cosmos 5 manifestations, there were also the later heaven 5 ultimates. This scepter technique was precisely one of the later heaven 5 ultimates. At this moment, Chen Qianhua combined his earlier heaven and later heaven supreme martial arts, finally withstanding Yan Zhaoge's cyclic heavenly seal that caused the very heavens and earth to reverse. Ha ha! Yan Zhaoge laughed. Do whatever you want. If I change my move, consider it my loss. He exerted more force with his palm, continuing to execute a cyclic heavenly seal. Chapter 10, 77. As Yan Zhaoge flipped his palm, similarly executing the cyclic heavenly seal, the concept manifesting yet another new phenomenon. The river of time seemed to appear in the void. The other end was the beginning of the pre-celestial realm, formless, dim, and dark, an expanse of primal chaos. The end was the end of post-celestial, the end of creation. All living things would enter destruction and return to nothingness, while Yan Zhaoge had yet to cultivate in the immortal exterminating sword of the numinous treasure 4 swords that represented the descent of doomsday and the collapse of the great Tao, having simultaneously cultivated in the immortal slaughtering, immortal trapping, and immortal ending swords, Yan Zhaoge had already created the concept of the end of creation. At this moment, Yan Zhaoge used the cyclic heavenly seal of the jade clear lineage as a link between the fist of the grand clear lineage that symbolized the beginning and the sword of the prime clear lineage that symbolized the end. The simultaneous cultivation of the 3 pure ones merged into one, finally presenting a cyclic heaven seal that surpassed the imagination of countless people in the world. The universe was reversed, and life and death were overturned. The most powerful as well as the most fundamental principle of yin and yang appeared within this palm of Yan Zhaoge's. This was one of the most extreme changes of the flipping sky seal. Since ancient times, many powerhouses who had cultivated the cyclic heavenly scripture and ascended to the immortal realm were unable to display this transformation of the cyclic heavenly seal. It was a transformation beyond the return to innate realm. As Yan Zhaoge's palm descended, the world before Chen Qianhua's eyes changed completely. Everything in the world disappeared, and the boundary between innate and acquired was erased. It was as if it wanted to reverse the process of creation, which meant an incomparably terrifying power. It crushed all principles, transcended physical forms, and destroyed all existences in human cognition. It was an enormous power that was boundless and immeasurable. As Yan Zhaoge's palm descended, it directly shattered the scepter formed of Chen Qianhua's true essence. Although the grand beginning bright emptiness physique had both offensive and defensive capabilities, its defense was extremely powerful. However, with Chen Qianhua's current attainments, he was unable to withstand Yan Zhaoge's cyclic heavenly seal. His illusory body was forcefully squeezed out of the space between the illusory and the real by an immense force. Yan Zhaoge's palm came crashing down. As if he was slapping a bug, Chen Qianhua was sent flying towards the deep abyss below and smashed right into the deep abyss of the earth domain. As Chen Qianhua was sent flying, Yan Zhaoge's thoughts moved slightly. A streak of golden light flew out from his body, transforming into a glorious sun in midair as it suppressed the entire eight extremities world, bathing it in sunlight. It was the extreme Yang seal. As the extreme Yang seal descended, the surging devilish chi of the earth domain instantly fell silent. The change in the crack of the nine nether in the earth domain was more unusual than ever before. Yet, under Yen Zhaoge's control, the extreme Yang seal could be wielded freely now. Without the peak great devils of the nine underworlds making a move, how could the rampaging devilish chi alone withstand the extreme Yang seal? Are you surprised? Are you happy? Yen Zhaoge looked down at the deep abyss below. Amidst the billowing black smoke, a figure was floating. Even though he wasn't affected by the devilish chi, he still looked rather pathetic. The arms that had forcibly received Yen Zhaoge's cyclic heavenly seal earlier were now mangled and distorted in a strange manner. His pale skin looked as if there was not a single trace of blood left in it. Just as Chun Qianhua opened his mouth to speak, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, causing him to cough. Cough, cough, cough. You don't tell me you're walking the path of cultivating the three pure ones. Cough, cough. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to comprehend the fist intent of creation and innate restoration at the martial saint realm. Chun Qianhua coughed out blood unceasingly, but had a joyous expression on his face. Really, really, cough, cough. I feel that you are much more interesting than the Brocade Emperor now. Amidst his words, the wounds on his mangled arms wriggled unceasingly as they rapidly healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. His face that had been pale as paper gradually regained some color. Powerful life force surged. Time that resembled water circulated. Intersecting space fluctuated. Vast myriad phenomena manifested. Balanced yin and yang circulated. Fluctuating mental fluctuations. The six concepts of yin and yang, time, space, life, matter, and spirit simultaneously manifested, collectively forming the foundation of the world. Beneath this profound force, the injuries inflicted by Yen Zhaoge rapidly healed as well. Yen Zhaoge glanced at Chun Qianhua, raising his brows lightly. Oh, you have gathered the later heaven six scriptures of the jade, clear lineages, primordial heavenly scriptures. The thoughts of the exalted solar luminary are truly hard to guess. He is also an interesting person. While Chun Qianhua's aura was still weak, he finally stopped coughing blood. A streak of green light flew out from his body, expanding amidst the wind as it instantly transformed into a long banner. A flourishing life force manifested from within, the concept of the five elements incarnations being infinite and boundless. This green banner descended towards the deep abyss of the earth domain, as well obstructing the extreme Yang seal in midair. The tyrannical extreme Yang seal that resembled the descent of the true sun was actually swept along by that banner, temporarily unable to descend. Without the suppression of the extreme Yang seal, the nine underworld's devilish chi within the deep abyss of the hell domain began rampaging once more. Looking at that green banner, Yen Zhaoge's gaze hardened slightly as he finally felt rather taken aback. Hey, this is the Grand Longevity banner. It's actually in your hands. The Grand Longevity banner was a weapon forged by the Exalted Wood Luminary of the Kunlun Nine Luminaries that year, being renowned alongside the Extreme Yang Seal and the Extreme Yin Crown. Yen Zhaoge cared about it because his mother, Xue Chuqing, was the true orthodox descendant of the Exalted Wood Luminary. If the information provided by Lu Jinggu, Chao Jia, and Wang Pu was not wrong, the Bright Connection Emperor, Hu Yuexin, was the sole disciple of the Exalted Wood Luminary. You think that it should be in your mother's hands. Chun Qianhua shook his head. That should indeed be the case. Still, it first reached the disciple of the Bright Connection Emperor, who, who was also your mother's master. Still, she died, and this grand longevity banner did not reach your mother's hands. I obtained it from someone else, not knowing what it can be used for. I just kept it for now." Chen Qianhua smiled. "It looks like my patience has paid off. It has been put to use today, even being in contact with you. It couldn't be any better." Looking at him, the corners of Yan Zhaoga's mouth slowly arched upwards. Right, it indeed couldn't be any better. Amidst his words, he ignored the devilish qi that was rampaging once more down below, as well as the grand longevity banner that was enveloping the extreme yang seal. Yan Zhaoga directly struck out with another palm towards Chen Qianhua. At the same time, a streak of light flickered in the distance, a massive silhouette suddenly appearing in the air above the Earth domain. A great rock soared amidst 10,000 kilometers, instantly arriving before him. The silhouette of the great rock dissipated, the figure of Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone appearing. The Northern Ocean clone wielded a dark green bamboo cane that was 7 feet long and 7 segments long, swinging it in a circular motion towards the grand longevity banner. Struck by the dark green bamboo cane, the green light on the surface of the grand longevity banner instantly flickered. Under normal circumstances, a bamboo cane would have to be 8 feet long and 8 segments long before it could strike divine artifacts like the grand longevity banner and the extreme yang seal. Still, Chen Qianhua was currently facing Yan Zhaoga as his control over the grand longevity banner had weakened. Additionally, the grand longevity banner was currently clashing with the extreme yang seal that was not inferior to it in the slightest. Struck by the dark green bamboo cane now, it was immediately unable to withstand it. As the grand longevity banner relaxed, the extreme yang seal gained the upper hand, as not only did it suppress the grand longevity banner, instead, it even continued suppressing the rampaging devilish qi of the 9 underworlds down below. "I'll just give you a word of praise. You have indeed brought me some pleasant surprises." Yan Zhaoga chuckled, his palm covering the heavens and the earth as he arrived above Chen Qianhua's head. Chapter 1078. Once again, Yan Zhaoga unleashed another cyclic, heavenly seal, blasting Chen Qianhua towards the deep abyss below. This palm strike twisted and broke Chen Qianhua's arms once again. He was unable to withstand this palm of Yan Zhaoga's, as his stance was directly broken. Yan Zhaoga's palm did not cease in its momentum as it struck down on his head. The foundation of the world was almost shattered, although it protected Chen Qianhua from being killed by a single palm strike. His head was bleeding. Meanwhile, the grand longevity banner was suppressed by the extreme yang seal, yet it did not yield. As the green light flickered, the long banner fluttered in the wind. At this moment, it seemed to break through all obstacles, tenacious and unyielding, a sapling that sprouted from the soil and saw the sun. The sapling seemed to have forcefully broken through the chaos and wanted to grow with the brand new world. The world changed, and the divine tree grew old. It grew from a small sapling to a tree that covered the sky. The divine abilities of the grand longevity banner manifested as it sought to push aside the extreme yang seal that was suppressing it. However, wielding the dark green bamboo cane, Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone immediately struck downwards once more. The grand longevity banner flickered with green light before it was instantly suppressed by the extreme yang seal once more. However, right at this moment, a fourth figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the Earth domain. The newcomer's eyes flickered with specks of light that formed profound runes. His temperament was exactly the same as Chen Qianhua's. It was a clone that Chen Qianhua had refined. This clone of his was not looking at his real body at this moment, as he was instead gazing at Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone, and the dark green bamboo cane in the latter's hands. Treasurefall coin, tree of 7 wonders, the god-striking whip. The eyes of Qianhua's doppelganger flickered slightly. It doesn't look like any of them, but it seems like you've studied them all. I really don't know where you got so many secrets from. Wait, if it's before the great calamity, there seems to be a place that could do it. That place should have been destroyed as well. The clone shook his head, an excited look appearing on his face. When I first heard the rumors, I didn't pay much attention to it. Who would have thought that even the Tai Sui banner couldn't withstand it? If it were any other high-rank saint artifact, it would be even more unbearable. With a wave of his hand, a ray of light flew into the air. It was a piece of gold. What was different about this coin was that it had a pair of wings on each side. Seeing the appearance of that copper coin, the pupils of the Northern Ocean clone dilated slightly. Treasure-falling coin? When he took a closer look, he was able to distinguish that it wasn't the real Treasurefall coin, but a replica. There were inscriptions on the coin, and it turned into a stream of light that disappeared in a flash. It seemed like it could only be used once, and its effects couldn't compare to the real Treasurefall coin. But even so, it was like a legendary supreme treasure, a treasure that fell from the heavens. While the dark green bamboo cane was grasped by the Northern Ocean clone, illuminated by the treasured light of that winged coin, the Northern Ocean clone instantly felt his hand sink. Qianhua smiled instead and said, "As expected, this is actually a treasure, and not a weapon. It's a treasure that specializes in countering all weapons in the world. However, a treasure naturally has to be countered by the Treasurefall coin." His doppelganger rushed forward with both hands. Golden light flashed, and what he displayed was actually a Buddhist divine art. Yan Zhaoge's first thought was that Qianhua was related to the blessed lands of Buddhism of the future Buddha. But upon closer inspection, this clone of his did not seem to contain any Buddhist light. His cultivation base at the martial saint realm had all originated from his own bitter cultivation. In pre-great calamity times, due to the future Buddha, Buddhist disciples had all sincerely worshipped Buddha, worshipping him with the power of faith. The various Buddhist martial arts manuals all changed in this direction because of this. The Buddhist martial arts of the Gautama Buddha of Mystical Mountain that year were already rare in this world. Even the martial repository of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace in pre-great calamity times only had a small collection of them. Yet, this Buddhist clone of Qianhua, clearly walked the path of seeing one's heart and understanding one's nature, verifying one's Tathagata self. He punched over, bearing the stance of Vajra subduing devils, as it was ferocious beyond compare. Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone did not evade, as his fist intent manifested in the form of a kuanping, a great fish leaving the sea with immeasurable power as it clashed head-on with Qianhua's Buddhist clone. Wild thunder exploded amidst space as the surging black chi in the surroundings was cleared away. The Northern Ocean clone's body shook slightly as Qianhua's Buddhist clone stumbled 2 steps backwards. Still, a dark red mark vaguely surfaced on the fist of Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone. In terms of strength, the Northern Ocean clone was superior. In terms of the sturdiness of his body, Qianhua's Buddhist clone was slightly superior. Similar to the Northern Ocean clone, the strength of this clone of Qianhua's already surpassed countless martial experts of the same cultivation level, as it was sufficient for his name to spread far and wide, rampaging throughout the world. Ha! Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone laughed coldly, his martial true intent condensing and manifesting as numerous silhouettes that soared above his head. Apart from the original kuanping, the image of a true dragon was added. And this was just the beginning. After the kuanping and the true dragon, there was the bifong, the golden crow, the cyclone turtle, the tautai, numerous silhouettes surfaced simultaneously, the acupoints of the Northern Ocean clone's entire body pulsing as his strength grew increasingly majestic. As he strode forward, the heavens and the earth seemed to have returned to the prehistoric times as countless great demonic beasts galloped together, shocking the heavens and shaking the earth. Beneath the Northern Ocean clone's attack, dragons and tigers accompanied him as his strength seemed limitless as he forcibly repelled Qin Qianhua's Buddhist clone. Yan Zhaoge held the upper hand in this battle of clones as well. After repelling Qin Qianhua's clone, the Northern Ocean clone flicked lightly with his finger, that flying coin in midair immediately repelling it. The dark green bamboo cane was no longer restrained. The Northern Ocean clone flicked his hand, the bamboo cane carrying a streak of purple light as it struck the Grand Longevity banner once more. The Grand Longevity banner shook, the extreme Yang seal, descending once more as it suppressed the crevice to the 9 underworlds down below. Still, a shocking roar now resounded from the deep abyss down below, causing one's heart to tremble. A 9 underworlds true devil shockingly emerged from the crevice. Still, before he could clearly see the world before him, a figure smashed downwards from above. It was Qin Qianhua, who had been sent tumbling down by Yan Zhaoge's palm once more. That devil had just been reacting when the world before his eyes suddenly dimmed. Yan Zhaoge had chased Qin Qianhua all the way down. Seeing that devil, he casually struck out with a cyclic heavenly seal. Beneath his iron palm that shook the heavens and overturned the earth, he swept through all enemies. The 9 underworlds' true devil, who had once been a formidable foe of the 8 extremities world, had been directly slain by Yan Zhaoge. So powerful, heavily injured, Qin Qianhua's qi and blood were extremely weak. Yet he was excited as never before. He lowered his head and looked. Half of his body had already been devoured by the crevice of the 9 underworlds, the immense gravitational force still continuing to corrode him. A pity, truly a pity. Qin Qianhua shook his head repeatedly. Yan Zhaoge said mildly, "You can break through the suppression of the heavens and earth anytime and escape from the 9 underworlds, returning to the world beyond worlds." Qin Qianhua laughed loudly. "What's the point of that?" His figure abruptly sunk as he actually took the initiative to rush into the crevice of the 9 underworlds. "Sure, I indeed don't intend to chase you down to the 9 underworlds. This Yen may not be talented, but I also have no interest in lowering myself to the level of a lunatic." Yan Zhaoge was taken aback for a moment before he chuckled. "Still, I can help you make this trip more interesting. I believe that you will be very willing to accept my parting gift." Saying thus, Yan Zhaoge formed seals with his hands, forming numerous seals before transforming into a black ball of light, which smashed into the crevice of the 9 underworlds. The black ball of light landed on Qin Qianhua's body, instantly forming a formless wound from which streams of black light leaked out. Affected by this formless devilish wound, the 9 underworlds instantly went into chaos as countless great devils began converging towards him like sharks smelling blood. Chapter 10:79. Having entered the 9 underworlds, Qin Qianhua's cultivation base was no longer affected by the dimensional laws of the 8 extremities world. His aura immediately began to surge, as if he had transformed from an ant into an elephant. Affected by this, his injuries also began to recover quickly. Back when King Xuanmu had descended into the 8 extremities world, he had been heavily injured by Yan Di. Even after returning to the world beyond worlds, his injuries had still not been light. However, after Qin Qianhua cultivated the World Foundation and recovered to the human immortal stage, most of his injuries were quickly healed. However, the formless devilish wounds caused by the black ball of light thrown by Yan Zhaoge still existed. Black light overflowed from the wound, as if the wound was bleeding. Chun Qianhua instantly sensed powerful auras vibrating from all directions, and their attention was drawn to him. Among them, there was no lack of top-notch great demons of the netherworld. Demonic charm ritual? Chun Qianhua was taken aback. This is the legendary devilish bewitching ritual that Taoism experts used to lure and kill 9 underworld's devils in pre-Great Calamity times. Affected by this invisible demonic injury, the great demons of the 9 underworlds would gather like sharks in the sea that smelled blood. With Chun Qianhua's cultivation base, he would be in grave danger if he were to be surrounded and attacked by a large number of 9 underworlds experts when he ventured deep into the 9 underworlds. There was no need to even mention the consequences if a higher-level demon was attracted. If it were under other circumstances, even if he was injured, Chun Qianhua would be able to heal his injuries very quickly and leave the 9 underworlds within a short period of time, returning to the world beyond worlds via extra-dimensional space. But now, if he didn't get rid of the demonic bewitching ritual, he would be surrounded at all times. If he wanted to heal his injuries and leave the 9 underworlds, it would be even more difficult. Within a certain range, it was as eye-catching as a candlelight in the dark night, constantly marking the location of the demons of the netherworld. When Chun Qianhua came back to his senses, he saw that the crack was already gradually closing up under Yan Zhaoga's suppression. You even know about the demonic charm ritual? Chun Qianhua's eyes shone brightly. Indeed, the most interesting person that the 8 Extremities world has ever produced is really you. Yan Zhaoga smiled nonchalantly, waving his hands at him. Don't be so courteous. Just enjoy yourself. The crack to the 9 nether was sealed again. Chun Qianhua gradually disappeared from Yan Zhaoga's vision. The final scene was of many devils who had originally not been too interested in a mere lower world, like the 8 Extremities world, suddenly beginning to congregate before surrounding Chun Qianhua. When the crack to the 9 underworlds was completely sealed, the demonic aura surging in the abyss of the Earth domain was also cleared. The 8 Extremities world finally regained its calm. However, due to the battle with Chun Qianhua, Yan Zhaoga had to go all out as well. As a result, the entire world was affected to some extent. In particular, the geography of the surrounding areas had undergone earth-shattering changes. The spiritual qi circulation of the entire 8 Extremities world had already become different from before, virtually having shattered, before slowly recovering. Having sealed the Earth domain, Yan Zhaoga swiveled his head to look elsewhere. There, Chun Qianhua's Buddhist clone was already hard-pressed to the point of being heavily injured by the Northern Ocean clone. It was just that he had no intention of breaking free of the suppression of dimensions and ascending back to the world beyond worlds. Like Yan Zhaoga's Northern Ocean clone, this clone's cultivation base far surpassed the 3rd level of the Martial Saint realm. Having descended into the 8 Extremities world, his cultivation base had been suppressed just like his main body. Sensing the Northern Ocean clone's doubts, this clone of Chun Qianhua smiled. A pity indeed. You have already sealed the crack to the 9 underworlds. Otherwise, this clone of mine would have gone down as well. While the 9 underworlds' evil devils are chaotic and unpredictable, most of them are very stupid. Therefore, they are not that interesting. Still, having some fun along the way is also a joyful thing. The Northern Ocean clone said mildly, you can try returning to the world beyond worlds. Still, there is still the possibility that you will be beaten to death by me here before you return. The other party laughed. It is already no longer important whether I return or not. I am more interested in you now than the Brocade Emperor. You are much more interesting than him. Amidst his words, his body abruptly turned golden, resembling a gilded Buddha statue. The next moment, a green-blue luster surged as his body turned into colored glass from the inside out. Just like the martial practitioners of the blessed lands of Buddhism who currently possess the power of faith, he was about to perish and enter parinirvana. Still, when martial practitioners of the blessed lands of Buddhism entered parinirvana, they used their Buddha light to send themselves into oblivion. This clone of Chen Qianhua, on the other hand, had his Buddhist cultivation base, which was naturally pure and untainted as it was hard to stop. In order to achieve this, one had to reach a certain cultivation base in Buddhism. Oh, the Northern Ocean clone smiled casually. You can die then. He punched out, striking the other party's head. The Buddha statue that resembled colored glass was directly shattered. Yan Zhaoge glanced at it before no longer paying any attention to it. He could be considered to have some understanding of this upper exalt now. This was a true madman. For the sake of the crazy thoughts that occasionally surfaced in his mind, he did not even care much about his own safety. Yan Zhaoge had previously still been wondering if Chen Qianhua would take revenge on Broad Creed Mountain and him after returning to the world beyond worlds after suffering a setback here in the Eight Extremities world. From the looks of it now, while the other party would definitely make a comeback, he would most likely only target him, Yan Zhaoge, because everyone else was boring in Chen Qianhua's eyes. Of course, this was not definite. The reason why madmen were hard to deal with was that they could not be judged by normal standards. This was especially so when this madman possessed extremely great destructive power, making him even more annoying. Even if Chen Qianhua, who was proficient in many supreme martial arts, was inferior to Yan Zhaoge in terms of the density of his true essence at the same cultivation level, it was still shocking. Having cultivated in the 10 primordial heavenly scriptures of the Jade Clear Direct lineage and the later Heaven 6 scriptures, having manifested the foundation of the world, his recovery ability was even greater than Zhuangxin, who cultivated in the Phoenix True Form scripture, and Taoist One Heaven, who cultivated in the Longevity Martial scripture. In terms of recovery ability alone, Yan Zhaoge was even inferior to him. Still, in terms of instantaneous eruption of power, Yan Zhaoge was the complete victor. The cyclic heavenly seal that had derived from reversing creation was the embodiment of the essence of Yan Zhaoge's simultaneous cultivation of the three purities. Therefore, at the same cultivation level, he had beaten Chen Qianhua into submission. Still, this fellow really gave me a bit of a pleasant surprise. Yan Zhaoge looked at that banner that flickered with green light. The Grand Longevity banner was still clashing with the Extreme Yang seal. It was just that it was at a disadvantage due to having been struck by the dark green bamboo cane earlier. Yan Zhaoge walked forward, attempting to collect the Grand Longevity banner. However, it was not easy at all. After all, this was a sacred artifact that was comparable to the Extreme Yang seal. The upper exalt Chen Qianhua had even left behind his fist intent mark within, a mark left behind by an exalt. It had been left behind by a human exalt who was able to contend against emperors. With Yan Zhaoge's current cultivation level, it would be quite a hassle for him to deal with it. Still, Yan Zhaoge was still in a very good mood. To him, a high-grade sacred artifact, like the Grand Longevity banner, held a different meaning. Using the Extreme Yang seal and the dark green bamboo cane, Yan Zhaoge first forcibly suppressed the Grand Longevity banner before keeping it. How to truly control this divine artifact could be discussed later. Chapter 1080. After resealing the crevice to the 9 underworlds beneath the deep abyss of the Earth domain and collecting the Grand Longevity banner, Yan Zhaoge did not linger any longer. He first headed west, heading to the Heaven Domain's Broad Creed Mountain. Due to the great battle with Chen Qianhua earlier, the spiritual qi circulation of the Eight Extremities world had already been completely messed up. If he left it like this world would descend into desolation and decline. There was a mechanism on Broad Creed Mountain that had been established previously to gradually improve the spiritual chi circulation of the Eight Extremities world. Now, it could be put to use once more, helping to restore the spiritual chi circulation of this world once more. The heaven-shaking, earth-overturning changes were felt by those of Broad Creed Mountain as well. The people on the mountain could still be considered calm, because they had already received notice that something might have happened to the crevice to the 9 underworlds. However, their clan's most legendary expert, Yen Zhaoge, descended to the mortal realm, had already descended to the Eight Extremities world to deal with this matter. After knowing this, everyone's emotions became calm. It was as if just hearing that name would make them feel carefree. The final result strongly proved this point once more. While it shocked the heavens and shook the earth, the changes to the 9 underworlds were still quelled once more, peace returning to the Eight Extremities world. Yen Zhaoge's return to the mountain caused everyone's spirits to rise. The disciples of Broad Creed Mountain, who had interacted with Yen Zhaoge in the past, all felt honored. Seeing those familiar faces, Yen Zhaoge felt happy as well. The time flow of the Eight Extremities world was only half that of the world beyond worlds and a fifth of that of the vast ocean world. While Yen Zhaoge had been fighting for so many years in the world beyond worlds, less than 10 years had actually passed in the Eight Extremities world. Still, many things had happened over these past few years. Due to Broad Creed Mountain's inclination to nurture Feng Qi, due to the spiritual qi of the Eight Extremities world being more conducive to the advancement of martial practitioners, he had successfully stepped into the transcending mortality martial grandmaster realm. Some outstanding talents had also arisen amongst the younger generation. Similarly, however, disciples of the clan had perished as well. Currently, Broad Creed Mountain stood alone in the Eight Extremities world, virtually having no enemies. However, if Broad Creed Mountain disciples were to suffer cultivation deviation in the process of cultivating, or if they entered the Great Western Desert, the Southern Underground Palace, or the Marsh of Illusory Sea to temper themselves, there was still the possibility of them encountering danger. For example, Fang Juan's personal disciple Lu, who had been acclaimed alongside Yen Zhaoge, Su Fei, and Si Kongqing that year, while he had avoided the tribulation of falling to the dark side due to Su Fei's assistance during the great tribulation of Broad Creed Mountain back then, at the end of the day, due to his unstable mental state and his desire for quick success, he had suffered cultivation deviation and perished while in death's seclusion. Perhaps he already no longer had the heart to compare himself with Yen Zhaoge, but Si Kongqing, Feng Yunsheng, Ing Longtu, and the others had all surpassed him, causing him to feel greater and greater pressure. He wasn't the first person to die in seclusion, and he wouldn't be the last. The path of martial arts cultivation had never been a smooth one. After having regained the balance of spiritual qi in the Eight Extremities world, Yen Zhaoge bid farewell to Feng Qi and the others before returning to Turbid Wave Pavilion of the Lake Domain. This place was tranquil from beginning to end, as if it was isolated from the world. Even when Yen Zhaoge and Qin Qianhua's battle had been heaven-shaking and earth-overturning earlier, this place had remained peaceful, resembling another world altogether. After greeting in Qinglin, Xie Yuchan, and the other Turbid Wave Pavilion martial practitioners, Yen Zhaoge returned to the small courtyard where Chen Minjing resided. Within the courtyard, the Brocade Emperor was currently conversing with Chen Minjing. His attitude was gentle, free, and easy as his words flowed like pearls, causing Chen Minjing, who knew his identity, to gradually feel less restrained. Sitting by the side, Meng Wan was all smiles. She had rarely been so happy these past few years. Seeing Yen Zhaoge return, the Brocade Emperor turned and glanced at him, smiling as he asked, "From the looks of it, you won. Has Chen Qianhua returned to the world beyond worlds?" He went to the 9 underworlds of his own accord. Yen Zhaoge shook his head. While he had been pulled back by his body that seemed to have been devoured by the 9 underworlds at the time, if Chen Qianhua had broken free of the suppression of the dimensions of the heavens and earth on his cultivation base, he would have been able to break free of the corrosion of the 9 underworlds at the same time, ascending and returning to the world beyond worlds. Meanwhile, Yan Zhaoge had already been prepared for this. The existence of the 9 underworlds would obstruct Chen Qianhua's ascension somewhat. Yan Zhaoge had mightily smashed down with the cyclic heavenly seal, forcibly sending Chen Qianhua into the deep abyss, in order to obstruct him with the crevice of the 9 underworlds. This way, if he attempted to break free of the suppression of the power of dimensions and ascend to the world beyond worlds, Yan Zhaoge would be prepared to intercept him then. Of course, even so, he would not have sufficient confidence of leaving Chen Qianhua behind for good. Still, for Chen Qianhua, who possessed outstanding strength and cultivation base, this was the best strategy to deal with him. Sadly, a lunatic's way of thinking was broad. Hearing his words, the Brocade Emperor nodded slowly. This indeed seems like his usual style. Still, before he left, I gave him a devilish bewitching ritual. Yan Zhaoge shrugged. With so many devils surrounding him, even if he does not die, he will not be able to leave the 9 underworlds within a short period of time. Having temporarily restricted this unstable factor to the 9 underworlds, Yan Zhaoge would be able to search for Feng Yunsheng along with the Brocade Emperor and Meng Wan without worry, even though Feng Yunsheng's trip to a foreign dimension might also be related to the 9 underworlds. There are few who are willing to battle with Chen Qianhua. A hint of a smile appeared on the Brocade Emperor's handsome face. The main reason is naturally that most people are unable to defeat him. Still, even those who can defeat him would find it pointless to battle with him. Because this person has no concept of life or death, success or failure, honor or disgrace. Even if one wins against him, he would not feel humiliated, vexed, embarrassed, or disappointed. The Brocade Emperor smiled. He would not care how many spoils of war the victors wrested from him. He would not even care about life or death. What Chen Qianhua was passionate about was not battle itself. Instead, he was interested in whether his opponents could bring him anything in the process of battling. Apart from that, he did not really care about gratitude or enmity, victory or defeat, life or death, gains or losses. Perhaps it should be said that what he pursued was not in the same circle as most people at all. The world of madmen was always different. Without the grief and rage of the loser, the joy of the victor would naturally be much dimmer. The Brocade Emperor said casually, for those who understand Chen Qianhua, even if they win against him, there is nothing to be happy about. Yan Zhaoge chuckled. That might not be the case. In Chen Qianhua's words, slapping him like a bug is actually rather fun for me. As for what he thinks, I do not care. The Brocade Emperor smiled. How many people of similar cultivation realms can slap him like a bug? He stood up, looking at Meng Wan and Chen Minjing. Since this matter is already over, let us return to the world beyond worlds. I hope that fellow Taoist, Chen, will not blame me for disturbing you today. While I have said this before, I still have to say one more thing. Having been separated from one for so many years, I have not been able to fulfill my responsibilities as a father. It is all thanks to you for raising and teaching Wan. I truly cannot thank you enough. Chen Minjing hurriedly said that she dared not accept this, feeling rather reluctant as she looked at Meng, one who was about to be separated again. Meng Wan consoled her. If there is a chance in the future, this disciple will definitely visit Master again. The Brocade Emperor smiled and nodded. Yan Zhaoge's gaze flickered slightly. Chapter 1081. After taking his leave of Chen Minjing, Yan Zhaoge left the 8 Extremities world along with the Brocade Emperor and Meng Wan. returning to the world beyond worlds. This time, he directly walked through the wound of the sky of the sacred Sun clan, arriving at the water ridge peak of the back mountain of Broad Creed Mountain in the world beyond worlds. Shall we go to Golden Court Mountain first? Yen Zhaoge looked inquiringly at the Brocade Emperor. In rebuilding the sacred Sun clan, senior apprentice brother Tang cannot do without the support of the southeastern Exalt. The Brocade Emperor smiled. It is naturally fine. It has also been a long time since I have seen fellow Daoist Chow. The group immediately set out for Golden Court Mountain. On the way, some news channels contacted Yen Zhaoge, informing him of the latest situation in the world beyond worlds. There was good news and bad news. When it rains, it pours. The worst news was that the concealed sovereign had gone into seclusion and isolated himself from the outside world. Whether it was Wang Zhengcheng, Li Juanxin, and the others on the southern high peaks Qilin Cliff, or Wang Pu and the others on the northern high peaks Jade Capital Crag, they could only sit and watch helplessly. Female Empress Jia Mingkong had never been interested in such matters that had nothing to do with her. The Heaven Emperor and the Brocade Emperor were not on good terms in the first place. With him interfering in this matter, the Brocade Emperor's reaction would be hard to predict. If they were not careful, a battle between perfected immortals might break out. Of course, there was also good news. The Encompassing Emperor, who was one of the world beyond worlds 5 emperors alongside the Brocade Emperor, and the Heaven Emperor had recently returned to the world beyond worlds from extra-dimensional space. The Sunluo Emperor, Li Jun, was also known as the Encompassing Emperor. The Lord of the world beyond worlds, central June Heaven territories, Kunlun Mountains, round Wisdom Ridge, one of the 5 emperors, possessed outstanding strength. In the great battle between the Brocade, Emperor Fu, Yunqi, and Mars Halberd earlier, he had been one of the mediators and witnesses. Under his witness, the Brocade Emperor and Mars Halberd finally agreed to battle amidst space. However, on the day of the battle, the Encompassing Emperor had headed to the void outside and did not return to watch the ceremony. Only the Earth Exalt, Wang Zhengcheng, was responsible for bearing witness. In the following years, the Encompassing Emperor, the Earthly Sovereign, the Sword Sovereign, and the other experts had remained in extra-dimensional space, not having returned to the world beyond worlds. Not long ago, he finally returned. As soon as he had returned, before he could even return to his Dao Arena residence in Round Intelligence Ridge's Myriad Phenomena Cave, he had received news that the Brocade Emperor had suffered cultivation deviation. The southern blazing Heaven Territories star, reflecting lake revealing the name of the immeasurable Heavenly Lord, had nearly caused a huge commotion. While the situation had not escalated due to Yen Zhaoge, the Brocade Emperor's own disciple He Shixing and the Earth Exalt Wang Zhengqing's disciple Li Juanxin had both been conned. In many people's minds, there was also Yen Zhaoge, who was also present. After learning that Yen Zhaoge and the Brocade Emperor had both gone to Golden Court Mountain, the Encompassing Emperor had come here as well. Yen Zhaoge had naturally long since heard of the Encompassing Emperor, Li Jun. Still, this was his first time seeing him in person. Dressed in black, he had white hair and a youthful face. His shiny white hair was combed neatly. As he stood there, he seemed to be one with the world, and it was difficult to distinguish him from the world. Every single movement he made seemed natural, almost like the Tao. Yen Zhaoge greets the Encompassing Emperor. Yen Zhaoge smiled in greeting. Looking at Yen Zhaoge, the Encompassing Emperor nodded slightly. Heroes come from the young. It is truly a fortunate thing for the exalted gold luminary to have such a bloodline, and also a fortunate thing for our Taoism. You overpraise me, Encompassing Emperor. Yen Zhaoge smiled. He could clearly see the pity in the other party's gaze. Indeed, after greeting Yen Zhaoge and Chao Jia, the Encompassing Emperor's gaze fell on the Brocade Emperor. The brocade emperor's expression was warm as a spring breeze. I have troubled you again, Taoist brother. I am ashamed. The encompassing emperor sighed. I once advised you not to walk this path that year. If you had listened to my advice, would things have turned out this way? What will come will come. I enjoyed 1,000 years of peace before, but didn't I still have to face that tribulation in the end? The brocade emperor smiled. At least the tribulation of Mars Halberd was finally overcome. The encompassing emperor said, having overcome the old tribulation, a new tribulation has arisen. This tribulation before you will not be easy to overcome as well. The smile on the brocade emperor's face vanished as he was silent for a moment before he said, Indeed. He raised his head and looked at the encompassing emperor. What do you intend to do now that you have come, Taoist brother? That will depend on what you intend to do. The encompassing emperor's snowy white brows twitched slightly. The incident of star-reflecting lake must not happen again. The brocade emperor raised his head slightly, murmuring after a while, What do I intend to do? I can't say for sure myself. Hearing his words, the expressions of Yen Zhaoge, Chao Jia, and the encompassing emperor all turned solemn. They all knew that while the brocade emperor's words seemed vague and perfunctory, it was actually the most accurate description of what he was thinking. My daughter has a close friend who headed to the extreme northern lands and has yet to return after entering a foreign dimension. It has already been many years since they last met, and they still miss each other. The brocade emperor regained his wits, saying, I intend to head north with my daughter and attempt to search for her. We father and daughter have been separated for many years. I have never fulfilled my responsibilities as a father. Every time I think about it, I feel rather guilty. He looked at Meng Wan with a gentle gaze. Wan is sensible and has been consoling me all this while. It is rare for her to have something that she wishes to do. As her father, I naturally have to do all I can for her. The encompassing emperor's gaze was calm and without ripples as he just glanced silently at Meng Wan. After his gaze swept between the brocade emperor and Meng Wan, the encompassing emperor said slowly, There are a few dimensional passageways in the extreme northern lands that lead to a foreign dimension that vaguely have something to do with the 9 underworlds. Yes, my daughter has been extremely worried about this. The brocade emperor nodded. Still, that is a minority at the end of the day. The encompassing emperor said, I wonder what fellow Taoist Fu thinks of this traveling together with your daughter. With this matter concerning the 9 underworlds, the encompassing emperor would not take it lightly. While he and the brocade emperor were old friends, the latter appeared incomparably normal as they were chatting happily now. Still, only the heavens knew what would happen if the brocade emperor left. The matter of star-reflecting lake was sufficient for all those in the know to feel as though they were facing a great enemy as they raised their guard against this former lord of ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff. I naturally do not mind. It is just that I will inevitably feel uneasy if I trouble you, fellow Taoist. The brocade emperor smiled as he looked at Yen Zhaoge. Right, Wan Er's friend is precisely this little friend, Yan's beloved wife. The encompassing emperor raised his brows slightly. Oh, does little friend Yen wish to travel together with us? Yen Zhaoge similarly smiled as he answered, My wife and I have not seen each other for many years as well. I miss her dearly. It is rare that the 2 majesties have personally come looking for us. I must make this trip together, no matter what. I hope that the encompassing emperor will allow it. The encompassing emperor glanced deeply at him before nodding, Of course. Looking at Chao Jia, the brocade emperor smiled. Better early than late. We will set off now. I hope that fellow Taoist Chao can help us with the matter of the Sacred Sun clan reopening its headquarters in the world beyond worlds. A worried look flashed through Chao Jia's eyes as he still answered calmly, Rest assured. they immediately set off, departing Golden Court Mountain. They headed north, passing through the central June Heaven Territory, and heading to the northern Profound Heaven Territory. The Brocade Emperor did not linger at Kunlun Mountain, nor did he return to Ingenious Flying Peak's Red Lotus Cliff, as he seemed to have completely forgotten about his clan, as well as the fact that his other daughter, Fu Ting, was there. Meanwhile, Yen Zhaoge and the encompassing emperor similarly tacitly chose not to mention this matter. Chapter 1082. If possible, Yen Zhaoge actually hoped that Fu Ting would leave Ingenious Flying Peak and hide in the restful Immortal Valley, or somewhere else. He believed that it would naturally be Fu Ting's turn after the Brocade Emperor had dealt with Meng Wan's matter. Still, all of this was just a guess. Before the Brocade Emperor actually acted, no one could be certain of what this emperor wanted to do. Having comprehended the legacies of the Grand Clear lineage for many years, those of Ingenious Flying Peak all understood the current situation. They believed that Fu Ting and the others would eventually make their own judgment and decision. Yen Zhaoge's current attention was still placed on Feng Yunsheng and Meng Wan. With two emperors descending upon the northern Profound Heaven Territory, things would naturally not be peaceful here. The Northern Exalt had long since come out to welcome the Brocade Emperor and the encompassing Emperor. If it was said that it had only been out of courtesy in the past, he was now extremely cautious. What had happened at the southern Blazing Heaven Territory's star, Reflecting Lake, had only been spread amongst the higher echelons, as it had not been widely spread. Still, the Northern Exalt was naturally aware of it, as he was naturally wary of the current Brocade Emperor. This was also Yen Zhaoge's first time truly seeing this Lord of the North, Guan Yuluo's grandfather. A total of 7 exalts of 10 territories had attended Broad Creed Mountain's opening ceremony in the Royal Reed Sea. Besides the upper exalt Chen Qianhua and the earth exalt Wang Zhengcheng, only the northern exalt was absent. Afterwards, the identities of Yen Zhaoge and Yen Di had been announced, shocking the entire world beyond worlds. Yet, the northern exalt still showed no signs of activity. While he was not hostile like the western exalt Lang Qing and the others, he did not show any signs of closeness either. This was rather similar to the northern exalt's usual style. Of the 10 exalts, the northern exalt was probably the most low-key one. His style was somewhat similar to that of the female emperor, as he seldom interacted with outsiders. This was not completely without reason. Yen Zhaoge actually had a very good impression of him. This was because the Northern Exalt had always maintained a neutral stance regarding the matter of his mother, Xue Chuqing. He had also restrained those of Cloud Pavilion Mountain's profound remnant locale from participating in it. While he had not taken care of everything, this was already a form of goodwill from the Northern Exalt. The northern Profound Heaven Territory's Cloud Pavilion Mountain's profound remnant locale had always been renowned for its divination, with the Northern Exalt being a peak expert amongst them. If he and his disciples had participated in the capture, Xue Chuqing's escape would have become incredibly difficult, especially when Xue Chuqing's cultivation level was still low back then. Even though Xue Chuqing possessed half of the river diagram to protect herself, there were too many places where she needed to use it. Even if the peak experts were restraining one another and the Northern Exalt would not personally make a move, with a great number of profound remnant locale disciples participating in the capture, it would be very easy for Xue Chuqing to attend to one thing and lose sight of another, greatly increasing the risk of her concealment. It was precisely because they were proficient in this that the Northern Exalt's lineage had always kept a low profile, rarely participating in the various disputes. Yen Zhaoge greets the Northern Exalt. Seeing the Northern Exalt, Yen Zhaoge bowed. It has been some time since I last saw Miss Guan. How is she? Just from external appearances alone, the Northern Exalt was probably the most inconspicuous of the 10 exalts. His appearance was haggard, and he was old. His eyes were turbid, and he even seemed a little deaf. His spirit was nowhere to be seen, as if he could pass away at any time. Amongst the 10 exalts, the oldest and most senior was undoubtedly the Earth Exalt, Wang Zhengcheng. Next was the northeastern exalt Lu Zhenggu. Of course, he was still much younger than Wang Zhengcheng. Next was the northern exalt. It was just that from external appearances alone, the older Lu Zhenggu instead looked younger than the northern exalt, as he was ferocious, authoritative, and spirited. After exchanging greetings with Yen Zhaoge, the brocade emperor, and the encompassing emperor, the northern exalt smiled. "This little girl is a little crazy. Little friend Yen, please don't laugh at her." Yen Zhaoge said, "Not at all. It is all thanks to Miss Guan's enthusiasm that this Yen was able to find out the general whereabouts of my wife." The northern exalt was naturally aware of his intentions in coming to the northern profound heaven territory, having already communicated with Cloud Pavilion Mountain's profound remnant locale beforehand. He pondered for a moment before saying, "Little friend Yen, little friend Fu, the two of you should first make preparations. The dimensional passageway that little friend Feng used to head to extra-dimensional space this time has probably really been corroded by the 9 underworlds, becoming a land of tranquil stream." The so-called land of tranquil stream was not a domain of the 9 underworlds, as it had been formed from the corrosion of space by the 9 underworlds. The power of the 9 underworlds was strange and domineering, as it would corrode any world, whether it was tangible or intangible. Still, extra-dimensional space was chaotic and complex, as it was not easy for the 9 underworlds to corrode it. An extremely long period of time would be required before it could truly become a part of itself. Before that, space that had been tainted by the devilish chi of the 9 underworlds could still not be considered a true land of the 9 underworlds. Therefore, it was called a tranquil stream, as it could generally be considered a gray area between the 9 underworlds and the great 1,000 worlds of the universe, being different from the crevices of the 9 underworlds that were commonly known to corrode worlds. After having received advance notice of Yen Zhaoge and the brocade emperor's intentions in coming here, the northern exalt, who had not personally made a move for many years, had performed a divination. With the difference in cultivation bases between him and Feng Yunsheng, it should have been easy for him to divine her whereabouts under normal circumstances. Even if Feng Yunsheng was in extra-dimensional space and unable to accurately pinpoint her location, he would still be able to find out the general direction. Still, the divination was chaotic and unclear. The result was obvious. "I understand. Many thanks for the Northern Exalt's advice." Yen Zhaoge inhaled deeply, cupping his hands towards the Northern Exalt. Meng Wan looked rather nervously at her father, as the brocade emperor said, "Let's go take a look." The Northern Exalt said, "This old man will accompany the 2 majesties to the extreme northern lands and wait there to ensure that nothing goes wrong." The encompassing emperor looked calmly at the Northern Exalt, nodding towards him. They immediately set off, quickly arriving at the icy and snowy lands of the extreme northern lands. Following the clues that Feng Yunsheng had left behind, they searched together as they finally gradually settled on an area. The brocade emperor raised a hand, the world before them instantly changing. The all-encompassing wind and snow and the pure icy plains all turned illusory, as if the real heavens and earth had become a flat image. This was a variation of the grand, clear, supreme martial art, the grand beginning bright emptiness form. While the grand beginning bright emptiness form possessed outstanding defensive power, it was not a purely defensive technique. It possessed both offensive and defensive capabilities, naturally possessing boundless miraculous uses. It was just that the brocade emperor was currently the only one in the world beyond worlds who possessed such profound attainments. As everyone gazed over, they saw a few black lines vaguely drifting amidst the heavens and earth that seemed to have transformed into a painting of mountains and rivers. It was as if the painting had been torn apart and repaired afterwards. Before the Brocade Emperor had executed this technique, one would not have been able to see these marks in the normal heavens and earth. Those were the dimensional crevices that would occasionally appear and vanish very quickly here. After carefully inspecting for a moment, the Northern Exalt's gaze fell on one of the black lines. It should be here. Following the Northern Exalt's gaze, Yen Zhaoge and the others all nodded slowly. Let's go. The Brocade Emperor retracted his hand, the illusory scenes of the heavens and earth before him returning to reality. As the scenes of the heavens and earth regained their original state, the entrance to a dimensional passageway appeared on the icy plains. Gazing in from the outside, it was pitch black as it resembled a black hole, with bolts of lightning flickering within, indistinctly visible at times. Chapter 1083. Looking at the streaks of electricity within that black hole, Yen Zhaoge and the others seemed to be deep in thought. The Northern Exalt sighed softly. That was grand illusory spatial thunder, right? The encompassing Emperor said. The essence has already dispersed. It can no longer be called true, grand, illusory spatial thunder. However, perhaps there will be true, grand, illusory spatial thunder when we enter deep into the void. The grand illusory spatial thunder was one of the 9 heavenly immortal thunders that had been renowned even before the Great Calamity. It was ranked second among the 9 heavenly deity thunders, second only to the legendary primeval ancestral thunder. It was above the 5 elements thunder of fortune, hearts will thunder, and other heavenly thunder arts. If there is grand illusory spatial thunder disrupting space, there will probably be more obstructions along the way. Yen Zhaoge gazed at that black hole. The Northern Exalt said, "This old man will stand guard here. You can move out at any time." The Brocade Emperor nodded slightly. "Let us set off now." As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve and brought Meng Wan along as he entered the dimensional passageway. "Please wait, Northern Exalt." Yen Zhaoge bowed towards the Northern Exalt before entering alongside the encompassing Emperor. The Northern Exalt watched them leave before sitting down cross-legged at the entrance of the dimensional passageway, no longer moving. As time passed, the domain passageway disappeared once again. On the vast ice field, there was only an old figure sitting quietly in the wind and snow. As Yen Zhaoge entered this dimensional passageway, it was not like when he had traversed through other dimensions earlier, where the various colorful scenes before him had changed. This place was pitch black from beginning to end, and nothing could be seen. Only flashes of lightning could be seen from time to time. Walking in this domain passage, one could clearly feel the pressure of the void domain force, which was full of malice towards those who stepped into it. If one's cultivation was slightly lower, they would probably be squeezed into a pile of flesh and blood in an instant. If not for the Brocade Emperor's protection, Meng Wan's cultivation base would not have been sufficient to traverse this place. Yen Zhaoge glanced at her. According to the Brocade Emperor's current style of doing things, Meng Wan's safety should still be guaranteed for the time being. It was just that he dared not guarantee this. The Brocade Emperor's current thoughts were just too hard to fathom. If there was even the slightest fluctuation in his thoughts, he did not even need to do anything himself. As long as he ignored Meng Wan, who was in this domain passageway, Meng Wan would immediately suffer. Therefore, Yen Zhaoge had to pay attention to the Brocade Emperor's condition. Of course, it was not just for Meng Wan. It was also for Yen Zhaoge himself. Yen Zhaoge, who did not fear guessing at the worst intentions of others, had sufficient reason to suspect that the Brocade Emperor might suddenly attack and injure someone at any time. It was just that their target was not Meng Wan, but him, Yen Zhaoge. If his guess regarding the Brocade Emperor's cultivation path was correct, the grand simplicity splendor cloud aside from eliminating the existences of Meng Wan and Fu Ting in order to advance further, he and Yen Di would both be obstacles to the Brocade Emperor's path. The most important obstacle would definitely be Yen Di. Still, Yen Zhaoge would naturally not just sit by and do nothing. The royal Reed Sea had relied on the power of the later Earth text to resist the Heaven Emperor. Compared to experts who had already pushed open the door to immortality, Yen Zhaoge was still a junior. Normally speaking, aside from situations like the Heaven Emperor, where there was indeed deep enmity between them, true immortals would not go as far as to make things difficult for an immortal bridge martial saint given their status. Still, the problem was that the Brocade Emperor was currently not normal. If he really walked the path of heartlessness, he would only consider the gains and losses, the difficulty, and not things like status and face. If there was a chance to get rid of a potential threat, a potential obstacle, he would naturally get rid of it. Traveling together with such a figure, Yen Zhaoge could not help but think more about it. The encompassing emperor had come here with the intention of watching over the Brocade Emperor, preventing him from stirring up any more major disturbances. Still, it was really hard to predict how the encompassing emperor would view Meng Wan and Fu Ting. Besides the upper exalt Chen Qianhua, who was different from normal people, the higher echelon experts of the world beyond worlds all hoped that the Brocade Emperor would return to normal as soon as possible. Still, how he would do so would probably be a matter for each individual to consider. As Yen Zhaoge pondered, he saw Meng Wan suddenly gaze over. Yen Zhaoge could vaguely see some worry within those clear, intelligent eyes that resembled that of a young deer. She is smart indeed, Yen Zhaoge thought. Perhaps she did not have a sufficient understanding of the Brocade Emperor's situation, as she was still unclear about her own situation. Unease seemed to arise within Meng Wan's heart as she sensed that the situation was strange. Previously, she had been under house arrest by Wudong Slope. Suddenly released afterwards, she had met her father, whom she had never met before. While the Brocade Emperor appeared normal on the surface, he had brought her along as he wandered aimlessly amidst space for many days. Afterwards, upon returning to the world beyond worlds, one matter after another had occurred. Moving the location of her birth mother's burial, meeting her master whom she had always missed, searching for her long-lost friend Feng, Yunsheng. All of these had caused Meng Wan to feel her father's warmth. It was just that thinking about her previous encounters, the quick-witted Meng Wan just felt that things were a little strange. In front of the Brocade Emperor, Yen Zhaoge could not even secretly send a sound transmission to him, let alone say it out loud. Yen Zhaoge did not react to Meng Wan's probing gaze at all, as it was like he had not seen it at all. Seeing this, Meng Wan retracted her gaze, not feeling disappointed. No reaction was actually already an answer. Otherwise, Yen Zhaoge should be puzzled. Since there was no reaction, it meant that Yen Zhaoge clearly knew what she was asking about, while also vaguely confirming her guess. It was just that while she had obtained an answer, it was clearly not something that made her feel optimistic. Fortunately, Meng Wan had long since been mentally prepared for this, as she could only go with the flow now. As they traversed the endless darkness, dim radiance suddenly lit up. This was not the first time he had stepped into a foreign dimension. Still, as Yen Zhaoge gazed over, the scene before him was different from what he had experienced in the past. Starlight could not be seen flickering amidst the dim space, as there was only dim radiance that shone black and glossy. The space seemed to have turned from formless to tangible at this moment, as its surface was tainted with filth. It is indeed a land of tranquil streams. Yen Zhaoge nodded to himself. He had long since seen descriptions of the land of tranquil streams in books. Still, this was his first time experiencing it himself. This place resembled the 9 underworlds, yet was not, resembled the human realm, yet was not. It had its own wondrous aspects. There were many similar lands of tranquil streams of varying sizes. The land of tranquil streams that Yen Zhaoge and the others were currently in was rather vast. As they walked, they attempted to locate Feng Yunsheng's whereabouts. The environment of the land of tranquil streams was perilous, as many strange spirits and monsters were born there. Most of them were violent in nature, as they resembled the devils of the 9 underworlds. There were many powerful ones amongst them. Feng Yunsheng, having come here to temper herself, was in line with her expectations. She had already been here for many years. Yan Zhaoge and the others had not hoped to find her so quickly, as they were more focused on searching for clues. With the 2 true immortals, the Brocade Emperor and the Encompassing Emperor, leading the way, their sensory abilities were far superior to others even within the tranquil streams. The ferocious spirits and monsters that rampaged here were completely unable to obstruct them, as they advanced extremely quickly. As they walked and stopped, they searched unceasingly. Due to the passage of time, the earliest traces left behind by Feng Yunsheng no longer existed. It was only after Yan Zhaoge and the others had been searching for half a month that they began to make some occasional gains. As time passed and they ventured deeper, more and more traces and clues were left behind by Feng Yunsheng. However, the expressions of Yan Zhaoge and the others gradually turned solemn. As they gradually ventured deeper, they could vaguely feel that they were getting closer and closer to that terrifying 9 underworlds. Feng Yunsheng was still nowhere to be seen at this moment. Chapter 1084. The deeper they went into the land of tranquil stream, the more they could feel the terrifying aura of the 9 underworlds. Yan Zhaoge, the Brocade Emperor, and the Encompassing Emperor were naturally fine. Even with Meng Wan's cultivation, she was no longer able to maintain her foothold. After being corroded by the power of the netherworld, her mind would gradually go haywire. Even if one's heart was firm, they were not emotionless and desireless people. They would still be affected. It was all thanks to the jade pendant that the Brocade Emperor had given her to protect her, allowing her to clear her heart and focus her mind, that she was able to continue walking. Yan Zhaoge and the others weren't in the mood to deal with the spirits here, and those spirits were also unable to pose any threat to them, as they simply swept past them. Following the traces left behind by Feng Yunsheng, the group moved forward with a goal in mind, and their efficiency was much higher. After continuing walking like this for a few days, Yan Zhaoge and the others instead slowed down. Everyone's expression became solemn as they stared at the void in front of them. They had reached the edge of the land of tranquil stream. If they went further, they would be close to the source of the void erosion, which was the connection with the 9 serenities. Feng Yunsheng's footsteps seemed to continue forward. After looking around for a while, Yan Zhaoge did not find any other clues. It seemed like the only choice was to continue forward. The Encompassing Emperor asked slowly, "When this little friend Feng left Broad Creed Mountain for adventuring outside, did he bring along the Extreme Yin Crown?" He now already knew that Feng Yunsheng was the person of Broad Creed Mountain who wielded the Extreme Yin Crown. "The Extreme Yin Crown has always been controlled by my wife," Yan Zhaoge answered. At the side, Meng Wan's expression was calm as usual. The outcome of the fateful battle with Feng Yunsheng in the past had allowed her to completely let go of her obsession in this aspect. The Sunluo Emperor muttered to himself, "I wonder if little friend Feng has reached the Seeing Divinity Martial Saint realm." Although there were some traces left by Feng Yunsheng along the way, due to the erosion of time, there were no longer any details to speak of. It was difficult to determine Feng Yunsheng's current cultivation, strength, and state of mind. If senior apprentice Sister Feng successfully breaks through space and sees true divinity, she would be able to unleash the full power of the Extreme Yin Crown for a short period of time. Meng Wan was also a maiden of Extreme Yin, having once wielded the Extreme Yin Crown for many years, as she was extremely clear on this. It was unknown how the exalted lunar luminary had forged this sacred artifact, such that it was different from other sacred artifacts. Yan Zhaoge said mildly, "While my wife has the intention of tempering herself, this matter concerns the 9 underworlds. She definitely understands the gravity of it and will not recklessly take the risk." Yen Zhaoga knew what the encompassing emperor was worried about. If she could fully exert the power of the extreme Yin crown, not only would Feng Yunxing be able to protect herself, she would also be able to more effectively resist the encroachment of the 9 underworld's devilish will, stabilizing her mental state. The extreme Yin crown was a sacred artifact on the same level as the extreme Yang seal, its might standing at the peak of the mortal realm. As long as she did not encounter a great devil that was equivalent to a Dao Sect's immortal realm expert, Feng Yunxing would not be in too much danger even if she entered the 9 underworlds. On the contrary, if one had not reached the seeing divinity stage and was unable to fully wield the power of the extreme Yin crown, even if Feng Yunxing could wield a portion of the extreme Yin crown's power, recklessly venturing deep into the 9 underworlds would be hard to predict, especially if she was still in the merging avatar martial saint realm and had been bewitched by the 9 underworlds, which was why she had entered this place. The nature of the matter would be different. This time, they had to make a new plan for their search. However, since he had already come here, Yen Zhaoga naturally wouldn't just let the matter rest. "We should still go in and search for him," the Brocade Emperor said now. "Perhaps little friend Feng is in need of our help right now." The encompassing emperor nodded. "Let's go." The group of people continued forward, and the soul-stirring call began to ring in their ears, getting louder and louder until it was almost deafening. The gloomy light in front of him began to gradually disperse. Black fog filled the air, faintly flashing with an evil and ferocious blood-red luster. This was no longer the crevice to the 9 underworlds as seen in the 8 extremities world. Instead, it resembled a boundless sea of bitterness, directly facing the 9 underworlds. There's something strange about this place. Although the devilish chi of the 9 underworlds is also corroding the void, it's not convenient. The Brocade Emperor glanced at it before saying slowly, "It seems like some sort of existence is interfering with the 9 underworlds' corrosion of space." The encompassing emperor shook his head after observing for a moment. "It's related to grand void spatial thunder, but it's not just grand void spatial thunder." The group of people took the initiative to move forward and finally entered the vast black fog. The moment he took that step, he felt like he was in a different world. It was not the feeling of going from the 8 extremities world to the vast ocean world, to the floating life world, or from the 8 extremities world to the world beyond worlds. Instead, he felt as if he had become a different kind of life, a different form of life. It was similar to the death of the physical body and the soul leaving the body, turning from a human to a ghost. The entire universe was barren and wild. After entering, let alone Meng Wan, even Yen Zhaoga felt slightly uncomfortable. Previously, when he had faced the invasion of the devilish chi of the 9 underworlds, he had been in another world at the end of the day. Now that he was truly within the 9 underworlds, that bewitching force was more than 100-fold stronger. Yen Zhaoga even felt that the faceless devilish scripture that he had only ever used as a reference and never truly cultivated seemed to have a life of its own. Relying on the power of the 9 underworlds, the devilish scriptures in his memories vaguely seemed to form a seed of their own, taking root and germinating within Yen Zhaoga's soul. When everything had developed and grown strong, it would be time for them to take over. Besides the faceless devilish scripture, there were many other devilish arts that seemed to be automatically drawing in devilish chi, forming numerous devils. It was just that they were not as intense as the faceless devilish scripture. The 9 underworlds is indeed extraordinary. I wonder how Yunxing is doing now. Yen Zhaoga calmed his mind, silently circulating his profound art as he suppressed and cleanly eliminated the devils one by one. He paid attention to the Brocade Emperor's situation. The Brocade Emperor's current state could be said to be extremely easy for the 9 underworlds to exploit. While the current him might still be flawless physically, the same could not be said for his soul and thoughts. The encompassing emperor had the same thoughts as Yen Zhaoge. The reason he had come along on this trip was to guard against such latent dangers. The Brocade Emperor was as per normal as he seemed completely oblivious to it. He also seemed not to notice the attention of Yen Zhaoge and the encompassing emperor at all. He simply continued searching for the clues left behind by Feng Yinsheng, while also worrying about Meng Wan. They each harbored their own thoughts as they continued to advance in this world where no one should exist. The aura of a living person instantly drew the attention of numerous devils. Still, the devils that appeared nearby were merely equivalent to human martial saints at most, as they were naturally unable to obstruct the footsteps of Yen Zhaoge and the others. Still, not long after they had entered, Yen Zhaoge and the others suddenly felt the devilish qi and baleful qi in the surroundings seemingly gradually diminishing. They exchanged glances. There is indeed a unique existence here that is interfering with the 9 underworlds region and corroding the surrounding extra-dimensional space. Yen Zhaoge and the others immediately identified their direction, heading towards where the devilish qi and baleful qi were weakening. As they approached, the devilish qi and baleful qi grew weaker and weaker, yet there was a sharp chill that was growing stronger and stronger. Yen Zhaoge, the encompassing emperor, and the Brocade Emperor exchanged looks as they simultaneously exclaimed, "Sword intent!" Chapter 1085. It was indeed sword intent. What was more noteworthy was that there was more than one sword intent. Instead, it was 2 intersecting sword wills, like 2 long swords clashing against each other, emitting a metallic, clanging sound as they traversed the void. The sword chimes seemed to come from the distant past, passing through the ages and arriving at the present. Even from far away, the sharp sword intent caused people to feel a chill run down their spines. As Yen Zhaoge's group neared and analyzed that sword intent, their hearts simultaneously jolted. The gazes of the Brocade Emperor and the encompassing emperor simultaneously fell on Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge muttered, "Jade illusory heaven-opening sword." During the days when he traveled to Kunlun Mountain, he had also discussed Dao with Wang Pu and the others, so he was no stranger to the Jade virtual heaven-opening sword. Not to mention that he had personally witnessed the sword sovereign Yu Xinbei's heaven-shaking, heaven-splitting sword in the Royal Reed Sea back then. Currently, as Yen Zhaoge analyzed those 2 sword intents, he discovered that one of them was shockingly the Jade illusory heaven-opening sword that his grandfather Yen Xintang had created. Yu Xinbei's sword intent was of the same origin. It was pure and condensed. The Brocade Emperor and the encompassing emperor clearly recognized the sword intent of the Jade illusory heaven-opening sword, as the encompassing emperor said. Still, I wonder if it was left behind by the sword sovereign in the past, or perhaps by the exalted gold luminary. The other sword intent, however, is not the sword Dao of the prime clear lineage. A rather interested expression appeared on the Brocade Emperor's face. Although the person who fought back then had a profound cultivation base, the sword intent had not dissipated and could even stop the 9 underworlds from eroding the void. A considerable part of the key to the preservation of such strength was that the 2 sword intents were entangled with each other and reached a wonderful balance. Together, they had resisted the erosion of time. The other sword intent was obviously suppressed by the Jade illusory heaven-opening sword, but it was extraordinary and could be said to be shocking. Yen Zhaoge and the others could all tell that this sword intent was not one of the numinous treasure 4 swords of the prime clear lineage. The prime clear numinous treasure 4 swords had always been the highest achievement of Taoism's sword arts. In the hearts of many Taoism martial practitioners, especially those of the prime clear direct lineage. The numinous treasure four swords had always been the highest achievement in the Tao of the sword. Over the years, there were only a few challengers who were qualified to challenge the prime clear sword cultivators. But it was only a qualification. For example, in the Legends of the Investiture of the Gods, Taoist Master Jade Cauldron, the personal disciple of the Jade Clear Lineage's founder, the Lord of Primordial Beginning. For example, one of the four imperials of Taoism, the Purple Tenuity Emperor, had transformed one of the Grand Clear Direct Lineage's post-celestial 5 ultimates of the Grand Clear Direct Lineage, deriving the Tao of the sword from the Grand Heavenly Talisman. Along with the Prime Clear Direct Lineage expert, the Lord of Plentiful Treasure, the two of them had always been hailed as Taoism's top 3 experts in the Tao of the sword. In truth, however, the Prime Clear Lineage had more experts in the Tao of the sword. The Lord of Plentiful Treasure was merely the most outstanding amongst them. Outside of Taoism was the mystical mountain. After the Gautama Buddha had just attained transcendence, a sword son of Buddhism had appeared there. He discussed the Tao with the descendants of the Prime Clear Lineage at that time. However, ever since the Buddhist sword son passed away, the Buddhist sword Tao went silent once again. However, it was worth noting that while these experts were outstanding, not allowing the prime clear sword cultivators to dominate, the sword Taos they inherited were still weaker than the numinous treasure four swords. Or, it should be said that they were challenging the prime clear sword cultivators, and not the prime clear sword Tao. The prime clear sword Tao's first true challenge had actually come after the Great Calamity. It was precisely Yen Zhaoga's grandfather, the exalted gold luminary, Yen Xintang, who had soared into the world and improved upon the sword Tao of the Jade Cauldron cultivated deity as he created the Jade Illusory Heaven-Opening Sword. Only then had the numinous treasure four swords truly had an opponent. Of course, it could not be said that the current Jade Illusory Heaven-Opening Sword would definitely be comparable to the numinous treasure four swords. Still, those with knowledge could see the potential within. The crux of the Jade Illusory Heaven-Opening Sword lay in the fact that Yen Xintang's cultivation base had yet to reach its peak. If he had not died young, with his talent, his swordsmanship would have continued to improve as his cultivation base continued to improve. He would have eventually created a supreme sword art that was truly comparable to the numinous treasure four swords. Before this, the person most likely to achieve this had been the Purple Tenuity Emperor. Yet, following the Great Calamity, everything had come to a halt. Yen Xintang had followed in his footsteps, causing countless people to sigh in pity. Still, there was another sword art outside of the prime clear sword Tao that was currently competing with the Jade Illusory Heaven-Opening Sword within the 9 underworlds. It was neither the Buddhist sword Tao, nor the Purple Tenuity Emperor's sword Tao. Instead, it was a devilish sword. I don't seem to have heard of such a sword art of the devilish Tao in pre-Great Calamity times. Yen Zhaoga recalled as he looked at the brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor. The encompassing emperor pondered. Thinking about it carefully, the sword intent of the Jade Illusory Heaven-Opening Sword here is probably left behind by the exalted gold luminary. Battling the Jade Illusory Heaven-Opening Sword in the devilish domain of the 9 underworlds, this old man vaguely recalls a legend. The sword devil, Yin Shiyang. The brocade emperor continued. Yen Zhaoga's gaze flickered. Sword devil? The brocade emperor said, "Let's not guess blindly. Let's get closer and take a look." "That's fine, too." Yen Zhaoga nodded as they approached. The black fog before them gradually dispersed, the devilish chi of the 9 underworlds no longer remaining. Instead, a lustrous white light flickered, as it was exceptionally striking amidst this devilish domain. The white light vaguely contained a metallic luster, as the rumbling of thunder vaguely seemed to resound. Yen Zhaoga and the others came to a realization Right, so there were traces left behind by grand illusory spatial thunder here, coupled with the entanglement of the two sword intents. It is no wonder that it was still able to maintain such a powerful state after so long. While the immortal thunder itself no longer existed, the thunderbolt and the two sword intents had created a small independent space in this corner of the 9 underworlds that year. As they entered, the sword intent was sharp and cold. Still, it did not attack them, the outsiders. After entering this foreign dimension and coming into contact with those intermingling sword intents, a scene instantly surfaced before their eyes. 2 shocking sword lights, one white and one black, intermingled as they flew over from the distant sky, hacking through the infinite devilish chi of the 9 underworlds and dark soil of the 9 underworlds as cracks were left behind in the heavens and earth of the devilish domain. The intermingling sword lights descended here, shattering a clump of grand illusory spatial thunder as this foreign dimension was finally formed. Yen Zhaoga knew that this was the scene from back then. He gazed towards the source of the sword light. There, 2 figures, one purple and one black, intermingled. The figures suddenly halted as the figures of 2 men appeared. One of them, a black-clothed man, roared towards the heavens. At the end of the day, I still cannot defeat you. Infinite hatred, obsession, resentment, and unwillingness seemed to have condensed into something tangible, transcending the boundaries of time and space as it filled the entire heavens and earth. Opposite him was a purple-clothed youth who stood calmly alone with a single sword. The scene ended here. Still, Yen Zhaoga was still able to clearly see the appearance of that purple-clothed youth. It was none other than his grandfather, the exalted gold luminary, the sword god Yen Shintam. Your ancestor, the exalted gold luminary, fought countless battles of various sizes in the past. Other than dominating the roving jade heavens with his sword and becoming a sword god, he also had many other legends. The encompassing emperor said slowly, one of these was the great battle with the sword devil Yin Shiryang. No one knows the details of this. Still, the final result was that the sword god subdued the sword emperor before slaying the sword devil. Chapter 1086. Yin Shiryang. Yen Zhaoga repeated this name. The encompassing emperor glanced at Yen Zhaoga, no longer having any reservations as he thought of what had happened at Star Reflecting Lake. It is rumored that the sword devil Yin Shiryang was originally a martial practitioner of the immortal court. He is also extremely talented. His talent in the way of the sword is rarely seen in the world. It's a pity that he has been a disciple of the immortal court since he was young and worshipped the immeasurable heavenly Lord. Although he managed to push open the immortal door, his comprehension of the great Tao was lacking and his foundation was unstable. The encompassing emperor shook his head slightly. It should be said that he was delayed. If he could learn from my orthodox Taoism, his accomplishments would probably be limitless. As he spoke, he restrained his voice, not allowing it to enter Meng Wan's ears. If Meng Wan knew too much about the matter of the immortal court and the immeasurable heavenly Lord, she would naturally be able to understand that the brocade emperor had not taken her existence into consideration in discussing this matter back at Star Reflecting Lake. The brocade emperor did not mind others knowing that he had suffered cultivation deviation. But Meng Wan was different. It would be too hard to predict how the brocade emperor would react if she knew the truth. Therefore, while he spoke to Yen Zhaoga openly, the encompassing emperor still chose to use sound transmission, so that Meng Wan could not hear him. The brocade emperor said mildly from the side, while the rumored Yin Shiryang hailed from the immortal court, he is not much weaker than our orthodox Taoism's direct lineage martial practitioners at the same cultivation level. He is even stronger than many of them. Yen Zhaoga stroked his lower chin. That is indeed rather stunning. Back then, his first duel with your ancestor, Senior Yen, ended in a crushing defeat. Your ancestor felt pity for him and didn't take his life. The encompassing emperor continued. He was unresigned and challenged your ancestor a second time. In the end, he still suffered a crushing defeat. In the end, for the sake of making up for what he lacked and fighting a decisive battle with your ancestor, Yin Shiyang turned his back on the immortal court heretics and joined the 9 underworlds, becoming a devil on the spot. Hearing this, Yen Zhaoge looked thoughtfully at the encompassing emperor. The encompassing emperor nodded. The treasured light imbued with the power of faith emanating from the bodies of the immortal court martial practitioners is difficult to eradicate. All future troubles are at the whim of the immeasurable heavenly Lord. Even if you realize the truth and want to start all over again, it's just wishful thinking. However, there are no absolutes in this world. It's not impossible. I know of 2 methods. One of them is to be purified by Buddhism. In fact, it's just changing the target of worship. Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoge pondered for a moment before saying, "The second is to enter the 9 underworlds and become a devil." The encompassing emperor said, "It's similarly a path of no return, yet it can still be considered a choice." And so, Yin Shiyang entered the 9 underworlds, and a sword devil appeared in the world. The brocade emperor continued. After becoming a devil, Yin Shiyang's strength indeed improved greatly as his talents were not buried to the extent of being buried. Still, the sword devil was still unable to defeat the sword god in the end, as he was slain by your ancestor. Your ancestor killed the devil, and his sword showed no mercy, but he still felt pity for Yin Shiyang's talent. It's said that he once said that it would be a great regret in his life if he couldn't fight Yin Shiyang of the 3 clear lineage. Otherwise, it would be hard to tell who would win. The brocade emperor's thoughts wandered. In that era, amongst the experts who had sprung up after the Great Calamity, there was only one other person besides his wife, the Sword Emperor, who could receive such an evaluation from your ancestor in the Tao of the Sword. Yen Zhaoge nodded, not saying anything as he continued forward amidst that foreign dimension. As he neared those 2 coiling sword lights, as he came into contact with that black sword light, his mind instantly shook. Sharp, icy cold, sharp, tough, brutal, unbridled. The tyrannical sword intent struggled unceasingly beneath the suppression of the jade illusory heaven-opening sword, not yielding for even a moment. Following the erosion of time, this sword intent seemed illusory, whilst also real, as it was already more of a mark, as one would no longer be able to comprehend the concept of the sword arts contained within. Still, feeling the mark within, Yen Zhaoge was still able to appreciate his former flair. Numerous scenes seemed to surface within Yen Zhaoge's mind. It was precisely the high-spirited Yin Shiyang, who had devoutly worshipped the immeasurable heavenly Lord and whose cultivation base had transcended mortality in the immortal court. At the time when he had been most confident in his life, he had suffered a crushing defeat. That purple-clothed youth and the sword in his hand had since become Yin Shiyang's lifelong nightmare and obsession, also changing Yin Shiyang's fate. Yen, Xing, Tang. An enraged roar of indignation and indignation resounded unceasingly within Yen Zhaoge's ears. Defeat after defeat, defeat after defeat. As a martial practitioner of the immortal court who devoutly worshipped the immeasurable heavenly Lord, he had resolutely sacrificed himself to become a devil in the end. Exhausting all methods, paying any price, no matter how many times he failed, no matter how difficult the road ahead of him was, he would never give up. He would definitely surpass that person. His powerful obsession resembled tangible, as it agglomerated into the sword intent of the devilish heavenly sword before him, transforming into a peak devilish sword Tao between the heavens and the earth, as it sought to compete with that sword that opened the heavens, only ending in death. At the very end of the scene was Yen Xintang's figure. The current you, with your sword Tao still lacking in maturity, would still not be my match. If you were human, I would be willing to let you off once more, waiting for you to attain major accomplishment in your sword Tao before we would truly have a showdown. However, you immediately became a devil, even having become one of the 12 devilish gods. My sword cannot show you any mercy. At that time, Yen Xintang truly felt regretful, a pity that you were born in the immortal court. Seeing this scene, Yen Zhaoge felt rather complex emotions as well. His grandfather, the exalted gold luminary, the sword god Yen Xintang, had been acclaimed as the #1 expert of Taoism in the Tao of the Sword in post-Great Calamity times. Yen Xintang had added the words Taoism in front of it because he was being humble. Perhaps the root cause was that he had always felt regretful that he had not been able to battle the sword devil Lin Shiyang, who had attained the heights that he should have been able to determine who was superior. As for Di Qinglian, they were already family. He instead no longer had any desire to win. The sword light here looks like it was inadvertently left behind in the process of my ancestor battling the sword devil. While his emotions were rather complex, Yen Zhaoge's attention quickly shifted elsewhere. This is not a battlefield or the burial ground of the sword devil. The encompassing emperor said, "That's right, sword devil." Yen Zhaoge murmured, "Yin Shiyang's strength increased greatly after becoming a devil. He should not be an ordinary fallen devil, instead having merged with the body of a fallen great devil. If it is one of the 12 devilish gods, the sword devil, that should be the incarnation of the 6 supreme devils that occupies the position of aged metal of the 5 elements." The brocade emperor glanced at Yen Zhaoge. "I heard Red Lotus mention that you possess the faceless devilish scripture. It looks like you understand the 9 underworlds very well. You did not hear about the 12 devilish gods from Wangpu and Chaojia, right?" Yen Zhaoge answered candidly, "I do know quite a bit, but it is still rather limited. Still, I know a thing or two about the 12 devilish gods." He swiveled his head to look at the intermingling jade illusory heaven-opening sword and the devil heaven sword before him. "The 12 devilish gods are the peak devils of this world, the overlords of the devilish Tao, the kings of all devils. The 12 devilish gods are further divided into the 6 ancestral devils and the 6 supreme devils. The head of the 6 ancestral devils is hailed as the ancestor of all devils, the primordial heaven devil who originated the devilish Tao. He once fought with the founder of our Taoism's jade, clear lineage, the primordial heavenly lord of primordial beginning." Chapter 1087. When talking about the devils of the 9 underworlds, Yen Zhaoge, the encompassing emperor, and the brocade emperor no longer avoided Meng Wan, listening quietly by the side. Meng Wan could not help but sigh in admiration upon hearing the name of the primordial heavenly lord. Back in the 8 extremities world, while I knew how terrifying the 9 underworlds were, I had not thought that they would actually be this powerful. Yen Zhaoge said, "Ever since ancient times, with the long passage of time, while the Tao prevails and the devils vanish most of the time, no one can deny the power of the 9 underworlds. The primordial heavenly devil fought against the jade-clear founding master for the throne. I believe he lost?" Meng Wan asked. Yen Zhaoge smiled. "This is only natural. Therefore, the Lord of Primordial Beginning is still the Lord of Primordial Beginning, while the primordial heavenly devil can only be renamed the primordial heavenly devil." The encompassing emperor said, "The primordial heaven fiend was indeed defeated, and he was even suppressed by the primordial heavenly lord of primordial beginning later on, never to emerge again. However, if he were to reappear in the world, it would probably be a scene of doomsday. If we really want to talk about doomsday, we'll have to wait until the doomsday heavenly devil is born." The brocade emperor now said leisurely, "After all, he is like the lord of numinous treasure, an existence that symbolizes the transformation of all things into nothingness. Meng Wan recited softly. Doomsday Heavenly Devil, Yin Zhaoge explained from the side. While it said that there are the 12 devilish gods, one of them has never appeared in this world and has always been missing a spot. That would be the last of the 6 ancestral devils. Ancestral fiends are all connate god fiends. They existed before the creation of the heaven and earth. This one is the only exception. Although he is an ancestral fiend, the ancestor of all fiends, he will be born at the end of the world, the end of the post-celestial realm. Actually, it's still unknown what his real name is. Doomsday Heavenly Devil is a name people gave him based on his power. As time passed, it became his real name. Meng Wan understood, just like the founder of the Prime Clear lineage, the Lord of Numinous Treasure, who symbolizes the transformation of all living things from existence to non-existence, signifying the destruction of everything, the descent of the Dharma ending, and the disappearance of creation? The encompassing emperor nodded. Exactly. The Doomsday Heavenly Fiend is the symbol of the end of the world. The moment it descends into the world, it also represents the arrival of the true great calamity of this world. Primordial Sky Fiend and Doomsday Sky Fiend with one head and one tail are so powerful. The other 4 ancestral fiends aren't simple either, said Meng Wan with a sigh. Yen Zhaoge laughed. Isn't that so? He pointed at the 9 hells where everyone was. This 9 hells is the corpse of the 2nd ancestral devil, after the primordial heaven devil, the creation heaven devil. Meng Wan's gaze flickered. I remember that it was recorded in ancient texts that the vastness of the 9 underworlds was a world that existed before the great calamity and our entire human world. They were like 2 poles of existence. Such a world was actually formed from the corpse of a great devil. The brocade emperor laughed softly. While the creation heavenly devil has perished, whether or not he is powerful still depends on who killed him. The one who killed the creation heavenly devil was one of our Taoism's 3 clear grand masters, the Prime Clear Sect's Grand Master Numinous Treasure. Meng Wan blinked her eyes. No wonder. His hands behind his back, the brocade emperor leisurely gazed at the darkness of the 9 underworlds beyond this foreign dimension. While it is an existence that is like a polar opposite of the human realm, the 9 underworlds is barren at the end of the day. Therefore, it would naturally try to encroach upon our great 1,000 worlds of the human realm. Perhaps this can also be said to be a form of yearning. The 9 underworlds coincides with the place where the primordial heaven devil was sealed, also preserving a final bit of vitality for the devils in order to prevent the primordial heaven devil from breaking out of the seal, making it hard for them to exterminate the 9 underworlds. The brocade emperor swiveled his head and glanced at Yen Zhaoge. After the primordial heaven devil and the creation heavenly devil, the 3rd ancestral devil is known as the grand heavenly devil, and the 4th ancestral devil is known as the faceless heavenly devil. Meng Wan was taken aback, slightly. Grand heavenly devil? Yen Zhaoge said mildly. The Grand Heavenly Devil is the devilish incarnation of the Grand Clear Lord of Tao and virtue of one of our 3 clear Grand Masters, while the Faceless Heavenly Devil is the devilish incarnation of the ancient Buddha Amitabha. The 2 peak bigwigs seized the position of the ancestral devil with their great wisdom and might, having already severed the fortune of the devils to a certain extent. Therefore, throughout the endless years that followed, it was mostly the Tao that prevailed and the devils that prevailed. Even if there was a time when the Tao declined and the devils prevailed, it was only for a brief moment. Therefore, other than the 6th ancestral devil who had never truly descended into the world, there was only the 5th ancestral devil, the vast freedom heavenly devil, who had always been active in the past. Yen Zhaoge said as he shrugged. Still, that was a very long time ago. In our current era, long before the great calamity, ancestral devils were rarely seen. Those who wreaked havoc between the heavens and the earth were the last 6 of the 12 devilish gods. the 6 supreme devils. Yan Zhaoge's gaze fell on the 2 intermingling sword intents before him. This sword devil Yin Shiyang is the incarnation of the devil who occupies the position of aged gold of the 6 supreme devils. From becoming a devil to truly becoming a ruler of the devilish Tao, a process of growth was still required. It was just that this process of growth was extremely short for Yin Shiyang, who had already become the incarnation of a supreme devil. Still, this process had already been severed by Yen Xintam. The sword devil Yin Shiyang had become history. The encompassing emperor now said, "While Yin Shiyang is dead, the supreme devils are not extinguished as they merely await their next rebirth." The devils who occupy the position of aged gold of the 5 elements were the spear devil, the saber devil, and many others. After the great calamity, the sword devil Yin Shiyang appeared. Afterwards, another devil of aged gold will be reborn, rising from the ashes. The so-called 6 supreme devils were the heart devils and the devils of the 5 elements. The names of the devils of the 5 elements were not fixed. For example, the devils who occupied the position of aged gold. After the initial spear devil had perished, the saber devil had been reborn, rising and falling afterwards until the sword devil Yin Shiyang. The devils who occupied the position of earth included the earth devil, the stone devil, and so on. The devils who occupied the position of water included the ice devil, the water devil, the fog devil, the blood devil, and so on. There were also instances where the same devils were reborn, yet not the same person. Throughout the ages, it was not just a single epoch where devils were reborn after their deaths. While many devils had perished completely, the 12 devilish gods had never been extinguished aside from the creation devil. Still, while they would be reborn after their deaths, an opportunity was required as well. A life form that was compatible with them might appear in the next instant, or it might not appear for 1,000 years or even 10,000 years. In that case, these devils would only be able to lie dormant between life and death, quietly waiting. In the ancient texts of pre-Great Calamity times, of the 6 supreme devils, only the heart devil and the shadow devil who first occupied the position of would have always existed. The other 4 have already perished many times. Yan Zhaoge looked at the encompassing emperor and the brocade emperor. The brocade emperor smiled, saying, "After the great calamity, there has never been any news of the heart devil and the shadow devil having perished." Yan Zhaoge looked at the 2 streaks of sword light before him. It has already been over 2,000 years since this sword devil perished. I wonder who the new devil of aged gold will be when he is reborn after his death. Chapter 1088. Whether it is the devil of aged metal or the other supreme devils, they all desire to be reborn after death. The brocade emperor said mildly, "Their rebirth requires other life forms as their incarnations. It all depends on fate. A compatible incarnation might be right before their eyes, but if not, it is not impossible to wait for another 10 million years." Meng Wan hesitated for a moment before asking softly, "What is considered compatible?" The brocade emperor said, "That is not certain. It depends on whether the fleshly body and the soul are compatible, having nothing to do with one's cultivation base or talent in the martial Tao. Therefore, it is hard to predict." He suddenly smiled. "Even among the 4 of us here, it is hard to say whether there are any suitable ones." Hearing her father's words, Meng Wan did not show any special reaction, as she just looked rather worriedly at Yan Zhaoge. Yan Zhaoge understood that she was worried about Feng Yunsheng. Her worry was not without reason. It was not just the devil of aged metal, who was one of the 6 supreme devils. There were also many experts amongst the devils beneath the 12 devilish gods who might be lying in ambush, searching for incarnations so that they could rise from the ashes and return to the world. there were no lack of great experts amongst them. The 12 devilish gods were just too distant a concept for most people. The other devils were more direct and easier to come into contact with. Yen Zhaoge exhaled slowly, many thoughts instantly flashing through his mind. Let's not touch this place. Since it is the relic of our predecessors, it can also obstruct the 9 underworlds from corroding space, the encompassing emperor said as he looked at Yen Zhaoge and the brocade emperor. Yen Zhaoge and the brocade emperor both nodded. That makes sense. After glancing at those 2 intersecting sword lights one last time, Yen Zhaoge's group left the foreign dimension formed of sword intent and thunderbolts. As they ventured deeper into the 9 underworlds, even the brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor would have to raise their vigilance. The numerous devils of the 9 underworlds before them were getting stronger and stronger. While they still could not trouble them as they ventured deeper, it was completely possible that they might even encounter devils that were comparable to immortal realm experts. Of the 3 of them, the brocade emperor executed the grand beginning bright emptiness form, which was illusory yet real. The encompassing emperor had studied the myriad phenomena, heavenly scripture of the jade, clear lineages, primordial heavenly scripture. It possessed boundless transformations and was beneficial for concealment. Yen Zhaoge did not use the foundation of the peerless heavenly scripture, just circulating the first art of the dim radiant 12 arts, the concealed shadow art, and the 12th art, the peerless infinity art. He was similarly hard to find. In this way, their group was incomparably low-key. At least they didn't attract the attention of great demons from afar. However, it was extremely difficult to search for traces of Feng Yunsheng in the 9 underworlds. Yen Zhaoge and the others could only take the risk and try to capture the 9 underworld's devils to try to find out more about Feng Yunsheng, hoping that there would be a devil who had met Feng Yunsheng before. The devils of the netherworld were either bloodthirsty and violent, evil and strange, or cunning and full of lies. It was not an easy task to extract useful information from their mouths. There were many methods of punishment used on humans, but their effects were limited on the devils of the 9 underworlds. Moreover, this was the territory of the 9 underworlds, so it was difficult to make a big fuss. In the end, they managed to capture a great devil that had once fought against Feng Yunsheng. While the great devil had a violent temperament, it didn't lose its rationality. Finally, Yen Zhaoge and the others obtained some useful information. To a human like Feng Yunsheng, who had ventured into the 9 underworlds alone, this great demon had left a deep impression on her. The wounds on his body had yet to heal, and it was impossible for him to forget his opponent. According to the information obtained from the great devil, Yen Zhaoge's group continued advancing. Boundless scorched earth suddenly appeared on the pitch-black 9 underworld soil in front of him. In the dusky world, flames spread and burned as if there was no end to it. However, even though there was a sea of fire in front of him, the world still seemed dark. The fire did not dispel the darkness and bring peace. Instead, it gave people an ominous feeling. This looks like the abode of a netherworld demon emperor, said the encompassing emperor after observing for a while. Although he said that, he didn't have the slightest intention of stopping and directly stepped onto the scorched earth. The brocade emperor smiled, similarly not halting as he walked alongside the encompassing emperor. Looking at the scorched earth and the sea of flames, Meng Wan murmured, "It is rather similar to the flame devils of that year." Yen Zhaoge said as he walked, "The flame devils that rampaged through our 8 extremities world that year were not devils of the 9 underworlds. Instead, they were spirits of fire of earlier birth. Still, they were similarly tainted with devilish intent when they were first born. Therefore, it is not wrong to call them flame devils. Tracing back to their roots, their true intent originated from an expert of pre-great calamity times, the flame devil emperor. Yen Zhaoge explained. The Flame Devil Emperor's original title should have been the Heavenly Fire Emperor. Still, it is said that he later analyzed the devilish Tao. While he did not become a devil on the spot, he walked very deeply on that path. Therefore, there is much debate about it. Meng Wan nodded in understanding. Still, he is unrelated to the great devil who occupies the position of third fire of the six supreme devils. Yen Zhaoge said, in history, the devil of third fire once produced the fire devil, the yang devil, and the blazing devil. Our eight extremities world, that year only referred to the flame devils based on their characteristics and temperament. Hearing this, Meng Wan nodded. There is probably no one in the eight extremities world who knows about the six supreme devils. It is naturally impossible for them to know about the devil of third fire. Hearing her words, Yen Zhaoge could not help but smile. Meng Wan smiled as well. You, senior apprentice brother Yen, are not included. While they were smiling, their brows were knit into a knot as they gazed at the barren, scorched earth that stretched for billions of li. They quickly arrived at the core region of this place. There were no other devils to be seen on the scorched earth, as it was like none of them dared to invade this territory. Soon, a massive devilish palace appeared before Yen Zhaoge and the others. The entire palace was completely formed of flames. It was 1,000 feet tall, as the walls and pavilions of the palace were all blazing as it instilled fear in one's heart. Senior apprentice Sister Feng, have we entered this place? Having entered alongside the Brocade Emperor, the Encompassing Emperor, and Yen Zhaoge, Meng Wan was not afraid of the scene before her, as she appraised the devilish palace of flame that resembled a kingdom of giants. The Brocade Emperor and the Encompassing Emperor exchanged glances. Why does it look like this place is all bark and no bite? The Devil Emperor is not here? Has he gone out, or has he already perished? Outside the devilish domain's scorched earth, due to the inherent restrictions of devilish qi, numerous devils dared not approach. Still, it was tight on the outside while loose on the inside. Having truly arrived here, it was immediately apparent that something was wrong. Yunqing indeed did not come here for a reason. Yen Zhaoge narrowed his eyes into slits. They did not hesitate as they directly entered within. The majestic, towering devilish palace of flame was completely empty. It was only when they had arrived at the center of the devilish palace that they suddenly felt the shocking devilish qi surging to the heavens. Still, it seemed to have been suppressed, as it was at the end of its path, as it was exceptionally weak. Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. The aura is exactly the same as that of the devilish palace of scorched earth. It is the original owner of this place, that emperor amongst devils. From the looks of it, after being slain, he was reborn in the 9 underworlds due to being undying and imperishable. Yet his rebirth was suppressed by someone such that he was unable to succeed. The Encompassing Emperor carefully sensed the changes in the devilish qi. He has already perished a long time ago, probably thousands of years ago. Who did this? Chapter 1089. As the Encompassing Emperor said this, he gazed at Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge understood his meaning as he shook his head. I cannot be sure if it is the exalted lunar luminary. Our sect does not know much about her, only knowing that she once descended to the 8 extremities world and left behind the extreme Yin crown. The Encompassing Emperor nodded as they entered the rear hall together. As the flames dispersed, a silhouette flickered amidst space, seemingly real, whilst also illusory as it drifted unceasingly. Gazing over, Yen Zhaoge saw a small black ember at the center of that silhouette. It looked extremely weak as it flickered unceasingly, as if it might be extinguished at any moment. Yet devilish qi surged to the heavens from within, just that it was forever unable to strengthen. That was the original owner of this place, an emperor amongst devils who had once presided arrogantly over the heavens and earth. While it was not that they could not be destroyed for good, devils were indeed undying and inextinguishable most of the time. Even if they perished for a time, they would be reborn in the 9 underworlds later on. Yet this 9 underworlds devil emperor's rebirth process had been suppressed by someone, having been unable to revive for thousands of years, as it was akin to being eternally extinguished. Devils that are equivalent to immortal bridge marshal saints are already very hard to slay. Even devil-shattering arrows are unable to do anything to them, let alone true immortals of Taoism. Yan Zhaoga's eyes narrowed into slits. It is truly not easy to suppress the rebirth of this emperor amongst devils. Observing carefully, he saw that the surroundings of that small black ember seemed to be enveloped by a layer of boundless darkness. This darkness devoured the light and heat of the ember, causing it to be eternally unable to strengthen. Feeling that darkness that devoured the heavens and devoured the sun, Yan Zhaoga coughed lightly. The power of corrosion, Rahu. Yan Zhaoga was not unfamiliar with this concept. It was the power of the sun against the stars, the Rahu luminary. The identity of the person who had slain a great devil of this place and sealed it so that it could not be reborn was obvious. The encompassing emperor and the brocade emperor exchanged glances as they spoke in unison. The exalted Rahu luminary of the new Kunlun 9 luminaries of post-Great Calamity times, the exalted Rahu luminary had been acclaimed alongside the earthly sovereign, concealed sovereign, and the exalted gold luminary Yen Xintam, being an expert of great importance in the resurgence of Taoism following the Great Calamity. Looking at Yan Zhaoga, the brocade emperor pondered. I heard from southeastern Chao that your sect seems to possess a treasure related to the exalted Rahu of the past, that this little friend Feng also wields it. It's not the Luoho blade, Yan Zhaoga answered frankly. Instead, it is a new saber that was forged from the remains of the Rahu saber after it was destroyed. It would not be wrong to say that it is related to the exalted Rahu luminary. Still, it is unclear how much of a relationship they have. He looked thoughtfully at Gloomy, who was suppressing the flames in front of him. From the looks of it, the relationship seems to be bigger than I thought. The brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor both nodded slowly. The brocade emperor extended a finger, lightly tapping on that clump of light. The light and shadow swayed slightly. The black flame was still weak, but the ominous darkness was rippling like water. The dark aura turned into boundless black flames and demonic chi. They were mournful and glaring, even more ferocious and domineering than the flames that made up the palace. Within the black flames and demonic chi, a human figure gradually appeared. It was the manifestation of the true intent of martial arts. Looking over, Yan Zhaoga saw that it was a black-clothed girl with a head of short hair that just reached her ears. She could not be said to be beautiful, her facial features strong and tough. A cold, stern aura emanated from her entire body as her gaze was resolute, not wavering in the least. While it was just a trace of light, a harsh killing intent still emanated from it, causing a chill to arise within one's heart. Yan Zhaoga had learnt much information from his previous visit to Kunlun Mountain's northern high peaks jade capital crag. Yan Zhaoga had already seen the portraits of the new Kunlun 9 luminaries of the past, his grandfather included. The figure before him was none other than the exalted Rahu luminary, Jian Shenhua. Like the exalted gold luminary Yen Xintam, she was a 9 luminaries expert who was confirmed to have perished. She had left behind countless legends in her lifetime, as she was famed for being iron-blooded and tough. The exalted Rahu luminary perished even before my ancestor, the exalted gold luminary. Yan Zhaoga surveyed the devilish palace of flame before him. It looks like this is one of her battle accomplishments from back then. It is just that, Yen Zhaoge frowned. It does not feel that simple. Gazing at the silhouetted figure of the exalted Rahu luminary, the encompassing emperor could only feel that this illusory figure's gaze was unwavering as it met his gaze. Carefully sensing the environment here, he suddenly said after a while, "It is indeed not simple." Yen Zhaoge pondered as well, saying, "There seems to have once been a mechanism here. While it has already dissipated, some traces of it still remain." After observing for a moment, the brocade emperor extended a palm, the force of his palm pulsing as a lot of dark, devilish fire suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The devilish chi of the black fire condensed, manifesting as numerous runes and talismans. Looking at those runes, the gazes of Yen Zhaoge and the others all hardened slightly. "Ha ha!" The brocade emperor laughed lightly. So, this was a contingency prepared by the exalted Rahu luminary in case she perished and intended to be reborn. The encompassing emperor slowly shook his head. She wants to borrow the profundities of rebirth of the devils of the 9 underworlds to complete her own rebirth. This is a little too. At the end of the day, the encompassing emperor did not want to speak too much on this matter. Still, Yen Zhaoge and the brocade emperor both understood what he was thinking. The exalted Rahu luminary was playing with fire. Whether or not her scheme would succeed, even if it did, a single misstep would result in her becoming a devil on the spot. What was most concerning was whether she would care about becoming a devil for the sake of success. Perhaps this was just a backup plan, and it would be best to not use it. Still, the exalted Rahu luminary had truly perished over 2,000 years ago. According to the rumored personality of the exalted Rahu luminary, she would probably disdain becoming a devil in exchange for a chance at rebirth. Yen Zhaoge said, "I just fear that she might be overconfident." He carefully analyzed those dark patterns of light, murmuring, "It feels like this mechanism does not just have a chance at rebirth. It seems to have other uses as well. She is not just setting up a contingency plan for her rebirth. She also wants to make use of this chance to wrest away the power, profundities, and authority of a certain great devil." Yen Zhaoge's expression changed slightly as a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Hearing his words, the encompassing emperor's expression changed as well. This was even more like playing with fire. Since the exalted Rahu luminary had taken a liking to this power, the original great devil must have been extraordinarily strong. The brocade emperor's gaze flickered as he too was rather taken aback. The exalted Rahu luminary, Jian Shenhua. Yen Zhaoge slapped his head. "I wonder if I should say that you are ambitious, already thinking of doing something even bigger after you are not dead yet." None of the new Kunlun 9 luminaries of the past had been easy to deal with. "I really have to suspect whether you were intentionally seeking death back then," Yen Zhaoge thought, rather maliciously. He really felt rather exasperated at this moment. If it were any other time, he might still be in the mood to watch the show and even give Jian Shenhua a thumbs up. Now, however, she was involved as well. The encompassing emperor frowned as he looked at the scene before him. The mechanism has already ended. What then? Chapter 1090. Whether they were concerned about Feng Yunsheng or whether the scheme of the exalted Rahu luminary, Jian Shenhua, had succeeded. In the end, everyone present was concerned. Yen Zhaoge inhaled deeply, closing his eyes. A thin screen of light appeared around his body, which gradually turned blurry, watery light. Where the watery light passed, everything seemed to turn black and white as it lost its luster. Beneath the infiltration of time that resembled water, the flow of time here seemed to be virtually stagnant. Watching this scene calmly, the brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor both nodded to themselves. With his cultivation base and age, his attainments in the Aeon Light heavenly scripture are unexpectedly brilliant. Please lend me a hand, Your Majesties. Yin Zhaoge's voice was rather ethereal as it sounded fast at times, while slow at others. The brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor did not hesitate as they both made a move. With their help, Yin Zhaoge circulated the aeon-light heavenly scripture, as time here seemed to flow in reverse. It was not truly flowing in reverse. Even if it did, it would still be hard to return to a few months or even years ago. Still, the rippling time merged with the black fire and devilish qi amid space, gradually forming a silhouette as it attempted to restore the earlier scenes. Suddenly, white light flickered amid space. Yin Zhaoge's gaze was stern, the traces left behind by Yunsheng. Accompanied by the appearance of the white light, an image gradually surfaced as it was disjointed and disjointed. A familiar face appeared before Yin Zhaoge and Meng Wan. Her hair was like a waterfall that was tied up simply behind her back. Garbed in white and wielding a black saber, her gaze deep. It was none other than Feng Yunsheng. Feng Yunsheng was seated in the meditative position on the ground, the extreme yin crown emitting clear, cold radiance above her head as it resembled the bright moon in the sky. The cold sun divine saber was placed horizontally on her knees, threads of black qi extending from it, transforming into runes that resembled chains as they entangled her body. Before Feng Yunsheng was a great black sun that hovered amid space. Beside her, the tiny ember of fire was completely suppressed by the dim darkness as it was unable to move. Black sunlight was emitted from the great black sun, illuminating the cold sun divine saber. Feng Yunsheng's expression was calm as her gaze was firm as she gazed at the great black sun before her. A figure surfaced amidst the great black sun. It was none other than the exalted Rahu luminary, Jian Shenhua. Her expression was as cold and solemn as ever as she calmly stared at Feng Yunsheng, her gaze threatening. I'm not the reincarnation of the saber soul, and you don't exist in the saber. Why is this saber so close to me? Feng Yunsheng's tone was calm and unhurried. Jian Shenhua, who was rumored to be a man of few words, was not stingy with her words when facing Feng Yunsheng. It is true that you are not the reincarnation of a saber soul, but a strand of your soul is sealed in the remains of the Rahu saber. You should say that this saber is the reincarnation of a portion of your soul. Although it cannot be considered your clone, it is connected to your mind, and you can wield it as if it were your own arm. The bright moonlight suppressed the pitch-black rune chains on Feng Yunsheng's body to a certain extent, but resisting these seals depended more on Feng Yunsheng's willpower. She said quietly, "Exalted Rahu luminary, although I admire Senior's demeanor in the past, I don't want to become someone else's reincarnation." What an outstanding little girl. Not only was Jian Shenhua not annoyed, a faint smile even appeared on her cold and stiff face, but this smile disappeared in a flash. The great black sun advanced, gradually about to devour Feng Yunsheng's body. Feng Yunsheng did not resist as she sat unmoving where she was, merely stabilizing her mind. Looking at the image before him, the encompassing emperor nodded slightly, while the exalted Rahu luminary has been revived in order to ensure that she does not fall to the dark side. She is exceptionally weak. This is not a battle between an immortal realm expert and a seeing divinity martial saint. What is being compared is not external cultivation base, but internal strength. Yin Zhaoge did not speak. Feng Yunsheng's mind was strong, and her will was firm, as she was one of the few people he had ever seen who was powerful. That was a might that surpassed her age and the limits of her strength. As compared to other opponents, he was not worried about Feng Yunsheng at all. Still, Feng Yunsheng's opponent this time was no ordinary person as well. She was a woman who had left behind an awe-inspiring, iron-blooded name in history. She was a great devil who, after her death, had not only set up a method to revive herself, but also schemed against a great devil whose foundation was even deeper than hers. It was to the extent that her own death might even be a part of her plan. Also, how many could be certain that she would be able to be reborn as she wished after her death under the precondition that she did not become a devil? Even so, Jian Shenhua had dared to gamble on it. She might not have lost to the point where she would have to stake it all on a single throw. What supported her was not her gambling nature or luck, but her firm will to the extreme. It was rumored that she had once suffered the soul-nailing needle, which was one of the 7 great tortures, alongside the cold marrow needles without a change in expression. Facing such an opponent this time, what were Feng Yunxing's chances of victory? In order to ensure that she does not fall to the dark side, the rebirth ritual arranged by the exalted Rahu luminary had to be borrowed. A rather interested expression appeared on the Brocade Emperor's face. Still, from the looks of it now, the outcome was not entirely within her expectations. It did not go so smoothly. The great black sun completely enveloped Feng Yunxing. Amidst the great sun, a black pattern of an annular solar eclipse gradually appeared on Feng Yunxing's forehead. Devilish qi vaguely circulated within her pupils as well. Still, her gaze remained clear and bright. Feng Yunxing suddenly roared, standing up and chopping forward with the cold sun divine saber in her hand. The extreme yin crown above her head shook, pure moonlight transforming into a saber light which broke through the great black sun. While the great black sun had vanished, the black annular solar eclipse on Feng Yunxing's forehead still remained as dim light leapt within her pupils. The white saber light left behind a mark amidst space, resembling a passageway that led to Yan Zhaoga. Yan Zhaoga met the gaze of his lover before him, even though he knew that she could not see him. Still, Feng Yunxing's gaze seemed to traverse through time at this moment, arriving in the present. I do not know who will be able to see this in the future. Feng Yunxing said, I am Feng Yunxing, a disciple of Broad Creed Mountain of the world beyond world's southeastern Young Heaven territories, Royal Reed Sea. As you saw earlier, due to what happened just now, I am currently unable to fully control my body. The ritual of the exalted Rahu luminary has only been completed half as of now. There is still the other half that involves a great devil. I do not know who it is exactly, but it is definitely no ordinary devil. Next, because of her, I will be venturing deeper into the 9 underworlds. Because I am unable to fully control myself, I am unable to leave behind any clues for others to follow. The marks left behind by my right hand may be erased by my own left hand the next moment. Therefore, there is no need to try and find me. I will leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, this message may be destroyed by me as well. She said slowly, if you are willing to help, Feng Yunxing will be endlessly grateful. Please help me pass this message to my clan, to my master Ling Yun, and to my husband, Yan Zhaoga. Having lived for several decades now, I have often failed and rarely succeeded. I have caused much trouble for those related to me. Feng Yunxing said solemnly, still, this time I will not lose. Not for gain or loss, not for strength or weakness. It is just that I must return to see you all again. With that, she smiled brightly bright and enchanting, Zhaoga, I will definitely return. We still have not consummated our marriage. Chapter 1091. The Brocade Emperor, the Encompassing Emperor, and Meng Wan all turned to look at Yan Zhaoga. Yan Zhaoga was in a daze as he gazed at that illusory image of light, not speaking. Within the image, Feng Yunxing cupped her fists toward space before turning elegantly. her figure traversing through the layers of flames as she vanished from this devilish palace of flame, no longer being seen. The white light faded as the silhouette before them gradually vanished. Time was reversed as everything returned to its current state. Yen Zhaoge gazed at the empty palace, not speaking for a long time. "Little friend, Yen, this matter involves the life of the exalted Rahu luminary. This old man and others of the world beyond worlds will probably have to get involved. At the very least, we must report this to the three sovereigns." After a long time, the encompassing emperor coughed softly and said slowly, "A top-notch great devil is also involved in this matter. For the proud, exalted Rahu luminary to target him, this great devil must be extraordinary. While it will be difficult to continue pursuing the clues, as little friend Feng says, if there is a chance, we will also attempt to enter the depths of the 9 underworlds to search. I hope to find little friend Feng as soon as possible." Yen Zhaoge's gaze flickered as he turned to look at the encompassing emperor. The old man with a ruddy complexion had a calm gaze, as no ripples could be seen within it at all. "Your Majesties, please get involved. The chances of success will naturally increase greatly," Yen Zhaoge said. "Of course, this Yen hopes to find my wife as soon as possible. Apologies for this. This Yen has always been looking forward to our wedding night." The encompassing emperor's gaze flickered slightly as he said nothing more. While he rather admired this youth before him, the matter of the exalted Rahu luminary this time had too many implications, as the encompassing emperor had no choice but to be prudent. The worst-case scenario would be Feng Yunshen losing to Jian Shenhua, but Jian Shenhua not winning as well. The one who would benefit from this would be the great devil who had been schemed against by Jian Shenhua. Whether it was Jian Shenhua or Feng Yunshen who became a devil, the outcome would be extremely terrible. The encompassing emperor naturally had to consider this possibility. Still, he similarly had to consider Yen Zhaoge and Broad Creed Mountain. The youth before him had too many connections. Besides the sword sovereign of Kunlun Mountains, Northern High Peak's Jade Capital Crag, he was actually also inextricably linked to the roving Jade Heavens. Even with the encompassing emperor, who was used to all sorts of storms, he had to calm his heart now. He had to be extremely cautious. Looks like we can only stop here." The brocade emperor did not seem to be thinking so much as he just looked rather regretfully at Meng Wan. "I hope that your friend will be able to turn misfortune into fortune." Meng Wan looked at the empty palace and felt a sense of loss in her heart. Hearing the brocade emperor's words now, she nodded, saying, "Don't worry about it, Daddy. I understand. I only hope that Senior Apprentice Sister Feng can return safely now." Yen Zhaoge smiled. "Being able to see you upon her return is undoubtedly a pleasant surprise. She should be very happy." With that, he cupped his hands towards the brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor. "Please wait a moment." Then Yen Zhaoge walked up to the dim darkness that was suppressing the black ember and extended his palm. Under the circulation of the faceless devil scripture, Yen Zhaoge's entire body seemed to turn illusory. A green Buddha statue appeared above his head. It had 4 faces and 12 arms. Every face was blank, and no facial features could be seen. The gazes of the encompassing emperor and the brocade emperor both flickered. What an outstanding youth! His talent is peerless indeed. With their knowledge, while they were not proficient in the faceless devil scripture, they naturally knew that the faceless heavenly devil of legend actually did not have a specific external form, while possessing the true intent of no self and no form. Those who cultivated an external form of the faceless heavenly devil would still be far from being proficient in their cultivation bases. Or perhaps the cultivators would intentionally infuse other concepts within. This was what Yen Zhaoge was currently doing. While he was projecting the profundities of the faceless devil scripture, he had no intention of falling to the dark side. The 12 arms of the green Buddha statue simultaneously extended, coming together towards the center as it suppressed and subdued that dim darkness and the ember. Then, the Buddha statue slowly descending above Yen Zhaoge's head. Little friend Yen, you still have to be careful. That ember is the source of a devilish emperor's revival at the end of the day. While the encompassing emperor did not stop Yen Zhaoge, he still warned him. Yen Zhaoge smiled. Thank you for your concern, encompassing emperor. Still, it is fine. He closed his eyes, the acupoints of his entire body suddenly shuddering. Seeing this, the gazes of the brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor both lit up. As Yen Zhaoge sat at the center of the back hall of the devilish palace of flame, his entire body suddenly glowed brightly. Streams of radiance that resembled bright starlight illuminated the surrounding area with him as their center, even penetrating through the walls of the palace formed of flames. At this moment, radiance lit up amidst the gloomy devilish domain of the 9 underworlds, resembling the morning star in the night sky at the center of blazing flames and scorched earth. All the acupoints of Yen Zhaoge's body emitted light. Now, one of them suddenly dimmed and was extinguished. Soon after, a second, a third. While the light of some of his acupoints was extinguished, the light that surged from the other acupoints that were still glowing grew increasingly dazzling as a qualitative change occurred. As the light flickered, it was like numerous stars circulated within the actual universe. Yen Zhaoge's entire aura surged along with this. He has actually ascended to the 8th level of the Martial Saint realm, the mid-immortal bridge stage, just like this. Seeing this, the encompassing emperor sighed softly. According to the news that this old man heard, he should have only ascended the immortal bridge not long ago before his lineage's opening ceremony. Besides admiration, the gaze with which the encompassing emperor looked at Yen Zhaoge also contained pity. This was naturally because Yen Zhaoge had already heard of the immeasurable heavenly lord back at Star Reflecting Lake. The encompassing emperor shook his head as he looked at the brocade emperor, a rare look of dissatisfaction appearing within his gaze. While Yen Zhaoge's attitude towards Feng Yinsheng had given him a headache, this did not affect his admiration of Yen Zhaoge's talent. The encompassing emperor felt great regret that the brocade emperor's rash actions had resulted in the destruction of an unparalleled genius of Taoism. The brocade emperor smiled, as he seemed to have long since forgotten about the matter of Star Reflecting Lake, as he just clicked his tongue in admiration as he looked at Yen Zhaoge. Your determination is commendable. Indeed, the encompassing emperor shook his head, looking at Yen Zhaoge once more. While this was not shown on his face, the resolute aura emanating from Yen Zhaoge's body was obvious for all to see. The dissatisfaction and suppression within his heart did not transform into vexation, worry, defeat, or dispiritedness. Instead, it was like an erupting volcano as it completely transformed into a resolute will to advance unceasingly upwards. Yen Zhaoge's accumulations were incomparably abundant. Aside from major bottlenecks, there was no difficulty in his advancement at all. Still, in order to stably tread this rare path of his, he was neither hurried nor impatient as he steadily advanced one step at a time. Still, at this moment, he no longer suppressed himself. While refining the devilish fire had repercussions, he still suddenly strode forward. Looking at the calm youth before him, the encompassing emperor really felt a headache coming on. I admire him even more now. The brocade emperor smiled leisurely. The encompassing emperor glanced at him. He is different from you. The brocade emperor smiled. There is nothing bad about being different from me. Red Lien has a rather good impression of him. I once thought of taking him in as a son-in-law. From the looks of it now, My judgment was not bad. This person is not just overflowing with talent. Chapter 1092. The brocade emperor's tone was relaxed, but it caused the encompassing emperor to glance at him again. Meanwhile, Yen Zhaoga now slowly ceased his cultivation. The starlight emitted by the acupoints of his entire body gradually retracted, returning to his body. He opened his eyes, smiling as he looked at the brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor. This Yen has been impetuous. I have incurred your ridicule. The brocade emperor and the encompassing emperor both said, "It is fine." Meng Wan smiled from the side. "Congratulations to senior apprentice brother Yen for advancing further in your cultivation. Junior sister Meng, you're too polite." Yen Zhaoga stood up, looking at the devilish palace of flame before him as he said, "This place already has no more value." The group exited the palace constructed of flames. The encompassing emperor pondered and said, "Little friend Feng is being coerced by the exalted Rahu luminary into venturing deeper into the 9 underworlds. At the same time, it would be hard for him to leave behind any clues for us. If we continue forward, not only will it be hard for us to gain anything, the risk will also greatly increase. After all, there were still many great demons in the 9 underworlds." The encompassing emperor looked at Yen Zhaoga and Meng Wan. "This old man means that we should return to the world beyond worlds and report this to the 3 sovereigns, asking them to make a decision and consider this matter at length. When the time comes, if we want to search the depths of the 9 underworlds again, with His Majesty the 3 sovereigns leading the way, it will be easier for us to enter deeper into the 9 underworlds." Hearing this, Yen Zhaoga nodded slowly. "Thank you, encompassing emperor, for understanding this Yan's feelings. I am not someone who does not know the gravity of things. Blindly entering the 9 underworlds without any clues would be no different from sending a sheep into a tiger's den. While I am worried about my wife, it is hard for me to think of anything now. Your Majesty, your words are wise and prudent. I have no objections." Meng Wan, who was at the side, also said, "We shouldn't have troubled you to this point. It's all up to you and Father to decide. Junior will naturally comply." The encompassing emperor said, "You are too polite, little friend Fu. I have gained a lot from my trip to the 9 underworlds this time. If not for this trip, I would not have known that the exalted Rahu luminary had actually done such a great thing." He looked at the brocade emperor, who smiled. "There are still some regrets in the end. Still, it is difficult for things to always go according to one's wishes. I believe that this is also fate." The gazes of Yen Zhaoga and the encompassing emperor flickered slightly upon hearing this, as their gazes shifted between the brocade emperor and Meng Wan. The group didn't stay any longer. They left the Flame Demon Palace and tried to go back the way they came. Along the way, Yen Zhaoga paid attention to the brocade emperor's movements. Still, from the looks of things, the brocade emperor seemed to be doing as per normal. The abnormality came from the outside world, as Yen Zhaoga and the others retraced their steps. Halfway through their journey away from the 9 underworlds, an intense feeling of unease suddenly arose within their hearts. In the boundless darkness, killing intent lurked everywhere. All of a sudden, a majestic wave swept over and struck them head-on. That terrifying aura seemed to surpass that of a perfected immortal expert who had already pushed open the gate of immortality. The first thought that flashed through the minds of Yen Zhaoga and the others was that while they had tried their best to keep a low profile, they had still ended up alerting even more powerful devils of the 9 underworlds. But then a loud voice reverberated in the void. "Where is Yin Tianxia's successor? This emperor can clearly sense the aura of the orthodox dim, radiant 12 arts originating from that immortal artifact left behind by Yin Tianxia, emperors of the immortal court." The encompassing emperor's expression suddenly darkened. "There's more than one. Yen Zhaoga's pupils dilated slightly. Why would a sovereign of the immortal court appear in the 9 underworlds? Did you discover me and the dim radiant wheel by chance? Or his thoughts flashed at lightning speed as he suddenly swiveled his head to look at the Brocade Emperor. He saw that the Brocade Emperor had a calm expression on his face as he smiled. While the sovereigns of the immortal court are powerful, they are still inferior to the 3 sovereigns of my orthodox Taoism at the end of the day. While Taoist Li, and I dare not say that we can win, we should still be able to hold them off for a while. Let's not get entangled in battle and try to make use of the geography of the 9 underworlds to shake them off. The encompassing emperor shot a deep glance at the Brocade Emperor before saying decisively, "Let's leave first." He swept his black sleeve, bringing along Yen Zhaoga as he fled in another direction. The Brocade Emperor did the same as he brought along Meng Wan and sped away amidst the frenzied tides behind them. A second voice resounded. "Li Jun, Fu Yinqi, must things really go to such an ugly extent? You were the one who obstructed us first. It should be this old man who finds it strange," the encompassing emperor said. "Is the immortal court going to break the agreement?" The first voice resounded. "Don't try to quibble. Yin Tianxia brought about his own destruction, and his descendants are also guilty of unforgivable crimes. This is the agreement. If you want to stop us today, do not blame this emperor for not giving you any face." The encompassing emperor said mildly, "We can only offend you then." As he said this, he did not cease in his footsteps as he transformed into a streak of light, traversing the heavy darkness of the 9 underworlds with the Brocade Emperor by his side. Yen Zhaoga did not mind being brought along by the encompassing emperor as he observed the Brocade Emperor beside him while looking behind him. Their roiling yellow sand had actually arisen amidst space which had previously been dim and filled with devilish qi. Waves of sand that surged to the heavens roiled unceasingly over the vast ocean that spanned 10,000 li as they pursued Yen Zhaoga's group. Meanwhile, a phoenix soared above the ocean of sand. It was unlike the fire phoenixes that Yen Zhaoga was already used to seeing from the lineage of Phoenix Ritual Mountain's Wudong Slope in the world beyond worlds. This phoenix was shockingly an ice phoenix. It was small and petite, merely 6 feet tall if it stood upright. Its wings spread wide. It seemed inconspicuous as it resembled a tiny white that in the air above the ocean of sand. Still, the power emanating from it was more than 100 times greater than that of Zhuang Shen, who had been a human exalt in the past. Zhuang Shen was truly like a firefly compared to the sun and moon. In pre-Great Calamity times, there was once an Ice Phoenix Emperor who passed down the Ice Phoenix Nirvana scripture. Yen Zhaoga's eyes narrowed into slits. In the current immortal court, there are already experts of the Ice Phoenix Nirvana scripture who can be called sovereigns. While it is a legacy of the immortal court, it is still extraordinary. Instead, as Yen Zhaoga recalled the roiling ocean of sand, he was unable to find a matching supreme martial art. There were a few that seemed similar, yet were not completely the same. From the looks of it, it was possible that it was like the dim, radiant 12 arts, a supreme martial art that had only been born after the Great Calamity as it had been derived from the crystallization of the wisdom of predecessors. While the foundation of martial practitioners of the immortal court lay in the treasured light of the power of faith, there were still many outstanding geniuses amongst them at the end of the day. The 2 of them chased each other, fighting and moving at the same time. The encompassing emperor and the Brocade Emperor no longer cared about keeping a low profile and concealing their tracks. Their intense battle instantly drew the attention of the devils of the 9 underworlds as more and more devils began approaching. Finally, a similarly terrifying aura arrived from the distance. Frenzied, evil howls resounded deafeningly as a great devil of the 9 underworlds that was comparable to immortal realm experts had finally been drawn over. While they had no intention of working together, the experts of the immortal court and the great devils had formlessly formed a pincer attack. As the great devils obstructed the path of Yan Zhaoge's group, the two sovereigns of the immortal court instantly made use of this chance to catch up. The encompassing emperor flicked his sleeve, releasing Yan Zhaoge as the brocade emperor similarly released Meng Wan. The two of them began to fully focus on battling with their opponents as Yan Zhaoge retreated to the side along with Meng Wan. The chaotic battle between the three sides immediately caused the heavens and earth to overturn in this devilish domain of the 9 underworlds. Chapter 1093. As Yan Zhaoge retreated along with Meng Wan, he gazed intently at the stalemate situation. The experts of the immortal court, the great devils of the 9 underworlds, the encompassing emperor, and the brocade emperor were locked in a chaotic battle. It was impossible to say who was working together, as they were all attacking and defending each other. The 9 Serenity's great demon's body was as large as a mountain. It had 4 wings and 6 thick and short legs. Its body was like a large sack, and its facial features could not be seen. From its appearance, it looked a little like the legendary exotic beast, Dijiang. However, unlike Dijiang, who looked like a yellow sack and was surrounded by scarlet fire, this great demon was pitch black and was surrounded by purple-black demonic fire. It looked like a Dijiang that had fallen into the demonic path, becoming a demon on the spot. This great demon was originally the weakest, but the purple-black demonic fire around his body began to bubble. Sizzling sounds came from the surface of the giant bubble. Lightning flickered on it. It was clearly made of lightning. The bubble floated in the air, looking fragile and light as if it could not withstand any force. However, when those lightning-like bubbles exploded, they expanded outwards, forming an independent foreign space. Then, the space shattered, setting off an even more terrifying tide. A bolt of lightning was like a world of its own. The void collapsed, and the surrounding world changed time and space. This great devil in the form of the Dijiang did not clash head-on with the brocade emperor, the encompassing emperor, and the others, as he instead relied more on the miraculous prowess of his thunderbolts to roam about by the side. As the brocade emperor, the encompassing emperor, and those two sovereigns of the immortal court fought and restrained each other, they were unable to do anything to that great devil for the time being. It's actually the void spatial thunder. Yan Zhaoge gazed at that massive ball of thunder that resembled a bubble. The Dijiang is proficient in the Tao of spatial variations in the first place. Having refined the grand illusory spatial thunder, it is truly like adding wings to a tiger. The brocade emperor and the others frowned as they gradually grew impatient, as they looked at that great devil. After all, they were fighting in the 9 underworlds. If they delayed for too long, it would definitely attract more peak experts of the 9 underworlds to attack them, and even more powerful demonic path experts would be attracted. Being entangled by Dijiang was like a maggot in their bones, exposing their location at any moment. This great demon that looked like Dijiang was clearly a cunning one. Its mind wasn't in a frenzied state, and it was consciously fighting with the others. Just as everyone was thinking of dealing with this great demon, first there was a sudden commotion in the distance. A crimson stream of fire tore through the void and appeared in everyone's line of sight. Seeing this, Yan Zhaoge and the encompassing emperor were both slightly taken aback. Mars halberd! The raging sea of fire washed away the surrounding black devil chi, and in the center of the sea of fire, a god of fire, who was standing on 2 fiery dragons, appeared. It was the incarnation of Mars halberd. Engulfed in flames, the giant god wasn't surprised to see Dijiang. Instead, he was shocked to see the 2 emperors of the immortal court. Heretics! The ice phoenix spoke in the human language. Mars halberd, We actually encountered each other in the 9 underworlds. We're destined to not return empty-handed today." He spread his wings and flew off, shaking off the Brocade Emperor and the others as he flew towards Mars Halberd. Although Mars Halberd was surprised, he was not afraid at all. He raised boundless raging fire and collided with the ice. Both sides were engaged in a fierce battle. The world was frozen for thousands of miles, but there were still flashes of fire from time to time. Meanwhile, while the Brocade Emperor and the Encompassing Emperor had lost an immortal court expert, that cunning great devil Dijang had instead begun to target them as he vaguely seemed to be joining forces with another expert of the immortal court. Sovereigns were sovereigns at the end of the day. Even if they hailed from the immortal court, they were still powerful to the extreme. Whether it was Mars Halberd, the Brocade Emperor, the Encompassing Emperor, or that great devil Dijang, all of them were peak experts. Still, it would not be easy for them to face a sovereign of the immortal court alone. While they hailed from the immortal court, having been able to attain their current cultivation bases, they were definitely outstanding figures themselves. Still, as compared to the Brocade Emperor, the Encompassing Emperor, and the others, the primary target of this sovereign of the immortal court was still Yen Zhaoge and the dim radiant wheel. Observing the battle situation, Yen Zhaoge was fearless in the face of danger as he suddenly approached the battlefield along with Meng Wan. A grand, illusory spatial thunder that had just shattered exploded, causing the surrounding space to distort as a result. Yen Zhaoge made use of this opportunity to directly shoot into that chaotic space as its destructive power had weakened following the explosion of the thunderbolt, and its influence on space had yet to vanish. Red light vaguely appeared within his pupils as he secretly circulated the immortal trapping sword, traversing the chaotic, turbulent flows of space as he speedily left the battlefield. A cold snort resounded behind him as all-encompassing yellow sand swept over in hot pursuit. Yet devilish intent that surged to the heavens manifested amidst space, surrounding him from all directions. That great devil Dijang's wish was fulfilled as even more peak experts of the 9 underworlds finally arrived. The battle instantly grew more chaotic, as that sovereign of the immortal court's movements were delayed slightly, allowing Yen Zhaoge and Meng Wan to vanish from the spot, drifting amidst chaotic space. When the scenery before Yen Zhaoge and Meng Wan regained normal, they were finally far away from the battlefield from earlier. Feeling the devilish chi fluctuations in the devilish domain of the 9 underworlds, Yen Zhaoge turned and gazed in a certain direction. There, streams of light could still be vaguely seen flickering as the radiance of death lit up. Meng Wan said softly, "Thank you, senior apprentice brother Yen, for saving me." "No need to stand on ceremony," Yen Zhaoge answered casually as he gazed in that direction. Meng Wan hesitated for a moment before asking, "Senior apprentice brother Yen, what exactly is father?" Yen Zhaoge pondered for a moment before telling her about the Brocade Emperor's situation and his earlier guess. Even though she had already been mentally prepared, Meng Wan was still taken aback upon hearing this. "Want to kill me and my sister?" "This is only my guess at the moment. Still, it should not be wrong. It might even be within these 9 underworlds that he is most likely to make a move," Yen Zhaoge said in a heavy tone. "While it is said that even a vicious tiger will not eat its cubs, this tiger is currently not very normal." He paused for a moment before adding, "Apart from you, I might also be his target." Making a move within the 9 underworlds would be completely undetectable, and everything could be pushed to the devils of the 9 underworlds. That would be perfect. Hearing his words, Meng Wan asked softly, "If we leave the Encompassing Emperor's line of sight now, wouldn't it be more convenient for us to make a move?" Yen Zhaoge shrugged. "There is no helping it. It can be said that I am burdening you. Those 2 sovereigns of the immortal court are targeting me. In terms of direct threat, they are even greater than your father, as they definitely want to make things difficult for me." Also, the Brocade Emperor's current thoughts are still rather unpredictable. What are you saying, senior apprentice brother Yin? How could it be you burdening me? If not for you, I would probably have died on the spot in that situation just now, even if father had not acted. Meng Wan said, "It is I who is burdening you." Her thoughts were sharp as she immediately thought of more things after knowing the whole story. Even if we are separated, father should still have a way to find me. If you bring me along, you will still be found. Yen Zhaoge continued fleeing with her, as he said, "If Yunsheng is able to see you on the day she returns, she will probably be exceptionally happy and overjoyed." Meng Wan said softly, "Senior apprentice brother, Yen, you can give senior apprentice sister Feng a lot. You do not have to take the risk for me, as compared to what I want to give." Yen Zhaoge laughed lightly. "Don't you feel that's satisfying? What she likes would be better." Meng Wan shot Yen Zhaoge a deep glance. Before she could speak, Yen Zhaoge drew back the corners of his lips. "While I also know that your father will be able to find you, isn't this a little too fast? Is it indeed prepared?" Before his words had landed, space suddenly shook as purple chi actually surged all the way to 5,000 kilometers away.